power?
All right, we'll call Committee of the Whole to order. I will first move to approve the minutes of the February 23rd meeting without the necessity of a reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. All right, so first up, we have communication from me regarding the Public Art Master Plan. And I see that we have Amanda Kramer here, so thank you for joining us, and Director Byington. I will kick it over to you guys.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me here tonight to give you a little update on our Public Art Master Plan. We've been working with the Cuyahoga County Planning Commission since the summer on this project. We entered into their community planning services program for a grant for this, so we were able to get that started in the summer. They actually were able to table at the Lakewood Arts Festival, which is great. Our internal group that's been meeting on this is myself, a couple members from our Public Art Advisory Board. Councilman Evans has been engaged. The schools have been around, Chamber, Lakewood Alive, and Nick from Public Works has been attending as well, trying to keep me in a tight space. Our timeline is pretty accurate to this point. They started with current conditions, really trying to understand where we were, as they studied a lot of our existing demographics, where we had issues with accessibility or equity, and just really trying to get a good grasp of where we were. We are concurrently going through the implementation and the vision and recommendations right now. So they started the vision and recommendations in October, and they're just finishing that up now. And at the same time, we're going through the implementation. The implementation is essentially giving us the tools to make those things happen. So funding strategies, partners that we should tap into that we've not tapped into before, things along those lines. And then we are looking for the final plan rollout in late spring this year. As I mentioned, we have had some engagement since the beginning. We have this steering committee that we've been working. The county also met with individual stakeholders, and I'll show you the list of stakeholders here shortly, but a good group. And then we had a community survey with 800 responses. You can see in the picture here, we did an engagement at the high school, which was daunting for me, but actually really nice and really well received. Then we have another one coming up at St. Ed's that we're going to be going to do the same thing. So that one should be pretty interesting because it's a lot of kids that don't live here. So I'm interested to see their perspective as visitors. And then we were also discussing doing a senior engagement with Barton Communities or at Cove, just to try to touch those populations that aren't always accounted for or can't always make a public meeting. Then we will do the standard public meeting that everybody's invited to. I believe that they're also going to do an artist roundtable with some artists that I wasn't able to get to come to our meetings, just to see how they felt about our processes, how things have worked for them, how successful, or where they see opportunities. So the input from the steering committee was first and foremost just really wanting to get a more diversified public art program. We do great with murals. Murals are great, but they wanted to see a little bit of a difference with sculptural art, functional art, temporary opportunities. We'd love to have traveling art come here, but we don't really have a standard of how we would allow that. So those were the input from there. The public art locations, they like it on the main corridors. There was an interest in seeing it in some more residential areas, maybe like how we can have an art tour of everybody who's painted their garage and made it an artistic piece. The installation of public art has generally been pretty successful, but we do have some issues with the vinyl. It doesn't stay on very well. It's expensive, and we're paying a fabricator, not an artist, which is challenging. But it's safer for the brick, but then we can't paint on the brick. So this was kind of some of those things that we wanted to hash out and figure out. As I discussed before, we wanted to talk compensation with the artists and make sure there was a standard. Right now, I do my best research and come up with some numbers and see how many people apply, and if a lot of people apply, then it seems like we're doing pretty good, but we want to make sure that it's competitive but reasonable and practical within our budget. For maintenance and removal, we also wanted to consider we don't have a lifespan on all of our art. We want to know when our art should start to be cycled out, when it is at the end of its life, and we want to be proactive with it instead of clamoring to get some maintenance in there. So we don't have a maintenance plan in place for much of our public art right now, but we want to make it a line item in our budget so that it's something that is consistent and addressed every year. So this is a group of organizations that met with the county, local community institutions, public library, YMCA, Bike Lakewood, et cetera, and then also some more regional organizations in the arts, but also just providers. This group had a pretty similar amount of feedback. There was, the opportunity for different forms of art, different themes and purposes. They did see a good opportunity to consider our accessibility and equity. You don't really think that a mural is challenging for people to see, but until you think about people who are vision impaired or, they can't reach something, there's just different obstacles that we came across while going through this process that was really interesting. Through our community survey, we did get 800 responses. Over 90% of respondents felt good or very good about public art in Lakewood, so it is a popular program. The favorites are shown here. So a nice mix of some of those were installed on, the sailboat one is installed on the aluminum panels. There's a 3D sculpture, and then we do have a vinyl, hand-painted, etc. I'm not going to go too far into the community survey feedback, but again, very favorable, but people generally want to see them in our commercial corridors, parks, public spaces. Murals are challenging, but people love them. So that is what I get asked about most frequently, without a doubt, is where can I put my mural, or can I put a mural on my building? So that is a big one, but there was also infrastructure like our traffic signal boxes and sculptures. The themes, nature, community diversity, pretty Lakewood-centric ideas. The one thing that I thought was really interesting in this one was showing how much people this is Lakewood, everybody wants to be engaged here, and you can see that in this. The volunteering was the most popular form of support for these people, so a lot of people can't go out there and donate or, go to a class, but they want to be a part of the art installation. They want to help prep a wall for a mural or whatever the case may be. So while it's not financial support, we have community support in that way. I'm only going to show you 2 maps. There were many more. This is an existing public art map. So I, along with Josh and the Public Works Department, have our inventory map. It is pretty up to date. This one is not because it was before all the traffic signal boxes were wrapped, so there's about 42 spots missing on here. So, but it is pretty much the same general details. So this is a 1/4 mile walk shed from where there is any piece of public art. So you can see that the corridor, most of the corridors along Detroit Madison are within that 1/4 mile walk shed. So there's not really any surprises here. The opportunity inventory shows a lot of opportunity in those same places. And this wasn't surprising to me. I think we talked a little bit about this in our committee meetings, that we wanted to push back a little bit on some of these options and to maybe try to think a little bit outside of just the commercial corridor. With some of our projects recently, we've really tried to lead into the residential areas that have been really successful, that people see while they're walking their dog up the street. So just to give you an understanding of where we go with this, we start with the vision and the guiding principles, and then it gets more and more defined. So with the vision, we go to the goals, and then strategies and action items. I'm not going to read the vision, but you can see some of our bolded type here is the inclusiveness, the accessibility, creating innovation, placemaking, functionality, authentic. That was really important. We didn't want it to feel not native to Lakewood, but it's a whole thing. So those were the big important things that we were going through with our guiding principles. Another thing was the functionality. We really like to kill two birds with one stone whenever we can around here, and we see that a lot with like the asphalt art that we did around Hayes, which is beautifying a public space, but also sending an alarm to pedestrians, cars, etc. So far we have 4 goals that we're working through, and then each one of them has specific recommendations for each of them. And again, I'm not going to take up too much of your time because I know you have a full agenda tonight, but these are those goals. Continuing to work with what we have and have a diverse form of public art. Target areas, working to make sure we're embracing all aspects of equity and making our processes more sustainable for the Public Art Advisory Board. We have a group of volunteers who are very willing to do the work, and I think that there are some opportunities for them to help me, help us, help everybody to get a better understanding of what they're doing, and just really make this a fully engaged board. Again, I'm not going to go through each of these individually. These are the types of art that we were going to explore. Commercial corridors, gateways were huge, parks, green space, residential options, community institutions, ensuring public art in Lakewood embraces all aspects of equity. So again, this is a representation of not only the art, but also the artists. And then the 4th goal was making that sustaining process and looking at altering funding strategies, not just coming out of the capital budget, the planning and process of it all, and engagement outreach and installation and maintenance. So I breezed through that. So feel free to make me dial back wherever you need me to.
Thank you. Could you go back to the slide that had the types of art, please? I think it was after that. Yeah, I think. There we go. Okay. So could you talk a little bit about performance and temporary art? I know you mentioned about the installation, so that, or the traveling art, so that would be more like a sculpture that goes from city to city, that kind of thing. But then performance, are we talking ballet, opera, interactive performance, all of the above?
All of the above.
Okay.
Generally with our public art programs, I've only said no to a few people, but we are generally pretty receptive to almost anything. But there's definitely been discussion about public art with ballet, with bringing the Beck Center out into the street, and like having this huge institution that we have, and why aren't they engaging in our street a little bit more to bring that part of the institution out? We're really open for anything, and the ballet, the musical performances have been something that's been a discussion a lot. I will say the high schoolers were not interested in seeing ballet, but sure, you take it how you want it.
I mean, there's many other forms of dance as well, so
Sure.
it doesn't, just because I studied ballet doesn't mean it has to be ballet. Also wanted to ask about interactive art, and you mentioned about the opportunities for volunteers, and I think it was Friends of Impet Park, maybe, where they did a big mural project where the community came and helped paint it, which I thought was a really cool experience, and I know you worked on with the kids doing the crosswalks, which is also a very cool experience. So is that something also thought about if we're potentially working with an educational artist to work with the community? Is that also part of this idea?
So as you mentioned, the asphalt art, we did have the kids go out there do it, and it was really interesting while we were out there, and I showed some of them on my phone just where the artist had been earlier that day or earlier that week, and they were like, whoa, they do this for a job. They thought it was really interesting. So I think showing them that they could do this for a job, showing them those kind of opportunities exist, and then they took a lot of ownership of it afterwards. They said, oh, my sister helped design this, or that's my sister's little dragon. So when they can see themselves in it, there's so much more ownership of it. It just is much more successful. So that is a big component, and I think we want to find other ways to incorporate those kinds of things more into our everyday projects, because they're not always accessible to that type of engagement. But that's another reason that we were moving more towards painted art and things like that, because when you have a vinyl that's printed off site and then installed, it's not a big process. It was really nice to see people. Aaron Casey just did a mural next to Magically Found. It's the sunflower mural, and he did it for free because he just wanted to put his name out there, and he got a lot of attention. That's kind of the performance art of it. So we want to see that as much as we can too.
Thank you. And then I also wanted to ask about, in terms of art in the parks, and I know we have in the long-term capital planning looking at, some of us have talked about, particularly with Bernice Pike Park, of wanting to see some sort of artwork, art path, talking about the history of female leaders in the city and the suffragette movement and all that sort of stuff. And there's some money planned in the capital plan for improving that park generally, but in terms of how this plan intersects with larger capital long-term planning, like with the parks, how is that being considered as part of, is it being considered as part of this plan, or how are those two things intersecting?
Yeah, so one of the things I sort of breezed past in the graphs shown was asked if there should be a part for art, essentially, with any new project. So, like, for example, if it was in the past, like the downtown development would have a requirement for a public art component. The city of Cleveland does that. Most of these bigger developments are going to do that anyway. I talked with Castile last week about some of their plans, so they're already in the works, but making it a requirement as opposed to a recommendation. Every time we do a plan that I've been a part of, there's been a demand for more public art. When we did the Madison Park Master Plan, everybody wanted to see more art in the park. So it's definitely something that's at the forefront. It is a part of this, it is written all over this at this point, to have art in the park and having that be a strategic part of those investments. And again, killing two birds with one stone. We need more lighting in this space, so let's make it a lit seesaw like they have in Canada. Yeah. Or let's make this a glow-in-the-dark bike lane, which did give Nick a little bit of concern, but he said we'll figure it out.
Cool. Councilmembers, Vice President Baker.
Yeah, another cool, there's this, I think it's called like glowstone, and it's in Michigan. They use it in their parks, and it's essentially like solar rocks that are put into the asphalt mix that like light up paths. And they do it in Detroit, in the Detroit metro region a lot, and that's like kind of creativity meeting public works, but just thought I'd say that because it tripped in my mind. The other thing is, if you can go to the slide about like locations or like opportunities, I view this, and I am totally other side of the brain than art, but I always appreciate it. But I look at this as like, if I were a billboard operator, a marketing person, like how could I get our brand or name out there as much as possible? Vehicle counts, pedestrian counts, traffic counts, those types of things. And this follows that, right? It's kind of like if you were Lamar and you wanted to get a billboard up, you'd look at these locations. I would point you a little bit more towards the excess lands around I-90. So the city, it's taken a while, Director Byington, but we'll get there. It's like 4 acres, I think, total. And there are no areas of higher vehicle counts than off of I-90. So I see those more as like gateway opportunities and maybe illuminated signage or something to that extent. But same with the front of Winterhurst, which I think is on here. But if you go further down Marginal on Lakewood Heights, there's another little green space there. And then you get off of McKinley. You know, so there's just opportunities. And no offense to Parma, I love Parma, but rarely are they out in front of us. But like when you get off 176 onto whatever, they at least painted the fence. It looks nicer than just a fence, right? So it provides a gateway element. And those are things I think we can do. We just have cedar fences. We can engage people a little bit more when they drive into Lakewood and let them know they're coming here, whether that's like big letters or something. Right? I'm not that person. I'm the person that can identify real estate where we can put it. So I think we should think about those areas because we will fully own them soon. And there will be opportunities for us to do these things. So I would just ask that you consider that. Thank you.
Councilman Evans.
Yes, thank you, Chair. To my colleague, I think there is actually a dot missing on here because we did talk about that entire gateway, that Hilliard. Given the impending, potential replacement of that bridge and Riverside Drive, there'd be opportunity, and that's also an area where public art could be functional, making that a lot safer for getting folks across that pretty dangerous little part to the northern part of Lakewood where you live, Councilman. So it's definitely something we talked. But I just wanted to say this is a great overview, but like when the entire report is available, I encourage everybody to take a look at it because there's a lot more information than this in there. The process was very thorough, as planner has said. That I was involved, so I had the opportunity to do that, which was great. So I saw firsthand all the great work. So thank the team at planning and our partners at Cuyahoga County. I think this is a great document. It's going to be really helpful to us as a city, and also, we're to the point where we need to attract public artists and have them be looking forward to work here. And they want to do that in a place that has a plan and is like intentional about the things they're doing. That's more attractive a lot of times than just some random one-off thing, because that makes sure that that person knows what they're getting into dealing with us. So it's really important. This has been in the works for a long time, Public Art Master Plan. We've been talking about it since before Public Art Advisory Board was even put into place. So thanks everybody for their hard work on it. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilmember Bixenstein.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to echo Councilmember Evans' sentiments. I really appreciate everybody's efforts to this end. And, even just this presentation, all the visuals, being reminded, oh yeah, I forgot about that particular mural. It goes to show the depth of public art we currently have, and clearly we have a plan in place for more. I was just curious, I know it's early, but Birds of Birdtown, has the initial response been, about what you expected? Has it been fairly strong?
It's been stronger than I expected, to be totally honest. I thought that was going to be a bit of a niche project that would only attract a few artists. And the way these work is that I get a couple of stragglers at the beginning, and then at my deadline at noon, I get 20 emails at 11:30 or between 11:30 and noon. So I've already gotten several, so I expect a bunch more to come in.
Glad to hear that.
Councilmember Strubig.
Thank you. Thank you for this report. I really appreciate this. This is something that the Lakewood Youth Council has been talking about. They are very interested in a battle of the bands for high school students. I have to connect you with Era from the Mental Health Committee specifically, and I don't want to lose that point that art is important for mental health, not only for the spectators of it, but also for the participants. And I love that you also pointed out that people in Lakewood are ready to volunteer to help with this, and I think that aspect of actually creating the art, and we see that, right, when we get cool snowfalls where you can make snowmen, and all of a sudden, poof, we have all these snowmen and women, snow families, popping up across the city, right? Because people enjoy, right, creating that, and then it's cool to watch it melt in that whole piece. And I also wanted to along that very same line, the removal of this art, it hadn't crossed my mind, but I appreciate that too, because sometimes you see some of those things and they're like, yeah, that doesn't look so good anymore. So I appreciate that you have a timeline and a focus on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Hamilton Steiner.
Thank you, President Keppel. Thank you so much for presenting this. And I am so glad that we as a community and as a city governance are investing in public art. Public investment in arts is so important. And, you know, especially when our federal government is eliminating funding for art. And I think there's, you know, an opportunity that we can set that standard and say, no, art is very important. It's important for our mental health, as Councilwoman Strubig has mentioned, and it's just, you know, important for all of us in the community. And I think that there's also an opportunity to involve young people. My daughter is at Hayes, and that project that happened over there with the curb up-outs was just an awesome experience for that entire class to participate in that. And I think if we can have more involvement of our young people into the arts, because they're naturally intuitive and naturally artistic, I think that there's a lot of opportunity, and there's even a lot of opportunity to teach, you know, art and to teach the business side of art as well, and how you can make a living doing what you love and doing your passion. And maybe if more people actually did their passion and what they loved, we'd have a lot more happier people. So let's encourage people to do their passion and live their passion. And if art is their passion, let's say you can do this, and here's how you can do it.
Thank you. Councilmember Bullock.
Thanks. Thanks, Madam Chair. Amanda, Director Byington, and Mayor, thanks for your work on this. It's got to be probably the biggest impact for the smallest cost investment that we've got around. You know, it's real flowering around the community, literally, because you see all this color. But our consistent effort has really been a wonderful thing to see, and I think I'm hearing unanimous support for more. To me, now we're in the growth mindset mode where we got to challenge ourselves to do more and different. And I'm glad that is in the plan, especially on the different media, you know, growing beyond murals. I love how you are trying to push art into the neighborhoods as much as possible. Do you think there's opportunities for that? Probably around the councilwoman to my left, your right, her neighborhood near Roosevelt Elementary is kind of in the, you know, so there's going to be, and Hayes, that Councilwoman Hamilton Steiner just said, you know, there's some public spaces and approaches there that are great as well, so that it's something that we discover as we walk and bike around the town and visit friends and neighbors. So one question, one more comment. I think I'd love us to see if we push on the content a little bit and support some risk in the actual what the art is. There's a tendency for us to celebrate local. So you go to a Cleveland Art Show, there's a lot of steel bridges and steel yards and sports teams and, you know, rock hall type stuff. And that's all wonderful. And we could do more. And I think we've laid a nice baseline of celebrating our community. The Birdtown, Birds for Birdtown is a great theme. Maybe the next pass on that is the ethnic historic neighbor, you know, an industrial past of Birdtown, just as a for instance. But maybe it's got nothing to do with anything particular to Lakewood. It's just that some artist who's got a vision, who lives here or works for our community, does something unique. And that's, I think, the one example of that's the Lakewood Library sculpture. Is an abstract piece. It's a very nice piece. It doesn't tie itself to anything local. So I'll stop my artistic content comments there, but you know, so we should keep improving, in my opinion. Last question is, who's got the curation function? So that where we could wayfind, we can inform, we can celebrate a new piece or the first piece or a classic piece on its 10th anniversary or something. At one point we talked about maybe the Beck Center hosting something. I don't know if we've got a coherent index, but that's a whole function that we could potentially grow into. And then that also invites the point I think you're implying here, which is some art pieces may come down someday, or do we envision all of them to last for 100 years each? And if not, how do we make that schedule and those decisions? I don't know, but that may be an aspect of the plan. So that, and what I mean by that is a curation. Literally, I just went to the art museum on the east side yesterday with my kids. How do they rotate from their collection into their galleries? You know, those kinds of decisions we may be approaching the stage of maturity for our public art program where we could start to think about those things. So any quick answers on that in your back pocket in 8 seconds?
I do have some answers for you, actually. I think the programming is a really important push that we've talked about in our group, almost making it like a ribbon cutting sort of a thing. We have this great art. What do we do to roll it out? You know, that kind of a process. I think those wins should be celebrated. And we've talked about having various types of art walks and tours. You know, people are definitely interested in that. I am the public art department, so I think part of this plan was a strong path forward for me to make those things happen that are doable internally, or, you know, seeing where we can outsource things and being strategic about that outsourcing. You know, if we're going to make this investment, we have this plan that shows that it's worthy of it. And that was a big deal with our plan as well. Regarding, you know, the end of life with some of our art, I would love to see, you know, we're taking this mural down, who wants a piece of it, kind of a thing. And it's just, you can take home this piece, or we can give it back to the artist. They can do what they please with it. So we have thought about that. We've thought about many, many things. It's a very all over the place kind of a committee, but the county's doing a nice job of putting all of our thoughts into a well-sculpted plan.
Thank you. And I think just kind of piggybacking on Councilman Bullock's question, I had noted on the walking map, and I just pulled up on the website, and there is a nice clickable walking map people can click on and see who the artist is and that sort of thing. But if part of the plan is also, like, we're starting about doing the art walks, about potentially engaging, whether it's the Public Art Advisory Board or other groups to sort of be docents at times, or, you know, there could be more content about, like, not just who the artist is, but why this piece was created and that sort of thing. And not asking you to personally do all that, but that is something that, you know, I could see community members engaging with as well. We have the community journalism program as well through the land, and folks with the Observer, so there could be opportunities to highlight art that way as well. Council members, any other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you for the presentation and for the work on this. You know, as a undergrad art major, I appreciate it personally and love seeing it around town, so glad to see us have a cohesive plan. Art is obviously subjective, and so it's good to have a plan for how we maintain it and expand it, and you put the public dollars to good purpose, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you. All right. So just to clean up our docket, I'll just move to receive and file the communication regarding the public art master plan.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes. Okay, so next, the rest of our time this evening we have for the charter review amendments. So just to reiterate, we had the charter review commission in 2024. There were 6 general recommendations that came out of that, and the communication that we did that showed link to that report. You can take a look at all that. I thought tonight we would start with some of the sort of low-hanging fruit of those. Some of them are more complicated than others, and then decide which, if any, we want to, the long-term goal is to get these out of committee, back to full council. If we're going to have any of them on the ballot for November, we would need to get them ideally out of committee prior to August recess, because the deadline for the November election would be the first week of September. So we want to make sure we're not right up against that deadline when we come back from recess, and we want to have time for them to go to the Board of Elections. We'd also want to have time to help the public understand any of the ones that we are putting forward for their consideration. So just talking about timeline, I do not expect that we will be necessarily ready. Maybe we will, but I don't expect we'll probably be ready to take action on any of these tonight, but we thought we could start the discussion. So with that, I thought probably the one of the, maybe I might be wrong about this, but one of the simpler ones to look at is the one regarding the redlining. Which is Thank you. 18/2026. So this one is essentially currently the way the charter is written. It's that the ordinance's resolution or section of an ordinance or resolution needs to be completely listed out, repealed, and then the new part put in, which can make legislation very lengthy and challenging for folks to read. And now that technology allows for the practice of redlining, where we can essentially highlight what's different, underline, strike through, et cetera, can make it clearer, particularly, in my opinion, for members of the public. When I remember coming as a member of the public and reading the entire old version first and being like very much against what that was, and then realizing, oh, the next part says that will all be repealed, and I just wasted all my time reading that. So, so that's the idea of this ordinance. So, any council members have comments on this one? Vice President Baker.
Yeah, I certainly agree that it's a good cleanup. I think if it was just this one, I don't know that I would, send the Board of Elections scrambling to come up with a ballot issue for it. But I think as a package of ones that we're going with, I would certainly support it.
Councilmember Strebig?
Thank you. I've also fell victim to that trap where I'm reading and I'm like, no, that's not what we wanted. That's exactly the opposite. And then you keep reading and oh, this is the repeal part. So then I go back through and I cross everything out. And the same thing happened numerous times when we were looking at the TNR with LaSwab. We're going through and I'm like, no, that's the repeal part. So to make it a lot easier to review, I think is a no-brainer for me. Thank you.
Other council members? Comments, thoughts? Councilmember Bullock.
This is, thank you, Madam Chair. This is very technical and minor, but are we being overly prescriptive in how we say that redlining should happen? It's specifying how redlining. I'm recalling in the old days there were prescriptive ways of providing public notice. It was newspapers at first, and then at one point it was even like on a bulletin board from the AOL days, and that got repealed. So now we try to find general language that doesn't require something this specific. Now, I guess that's really a question for the attorneys in the room. That method is universal enough to put in our charter, then I agree with the spirit of it, certainly. Thanks.
Vice President Baker.
Yeah, I mean, the profession, perhaps some of the gentlemen in the back, and I wasn't there when WordPerfect was around, or maybe Ernie, but generally speaking, WordPerfect did the same thing that Microsoft Word does, and will do the same thing as Google does, right, or whatever the word processing is. So to the point of how it's drafted, I think it basically says it's like new stuff underlined, old stuff struck through. And I think that's as old as legislative drafting for the history of our country has been. And so I think that's pretty safe. At least I don't want to speak for the law department, though.
Law Department, care to chime in?
You are correct, Councilman Baker. It does say revisions or amendments to an ordinance or resolution shall be clearly indicated by underlining any language inserted and by striking through any language that is removed.
All right. Any other council members care to have opinions, thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm just happy to say I think it makes a lot of sense and support.
All right, let's carry on because I think the general consensus is we could take a vote on this one to refer it favorably out of committee if we think that it is structurally ready for that. I'm eyeing the law department to see if they have any concerns about what the language of how this is currently written. But we might want to wait to do that if we're, well, I guess we could go ahead and do it, but I just want to, before we would actually pass it out of full council and refer back to refer it to the Board of Elections. I think the general idea was we wouldn't just send this one so we kind of want to wait and see if we are sending any of the other ones before we would vote this one at full council, was my understanding from how I was reading the room, that we probably wouldn't just do this one, the Board of Elections. But we could go ahead and vote it out of committee if we think it's ready.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Vice President Baker.
I think getting it out of committee might be helpful for record-keeping purposes in the committee, and then it can just be on the full council docket, and then if there are more accumulated, we can do that.
We could always defer it on the
Yeah.
full council. So, okay, so I will move to recommend favorably back to full council.
18, 20, 26?
18, 20, 26, yes.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any?
Madam President?
Councilman Member Hamilton Stein.
Thank you, President Keppel. So out of a sheer abundance of caution, in order not to give an appearance of impropriety, due to my prior service on the Charter Review Commission 2 years ago, I will be recusing myself from participating in the dialogues regarding the amendments as well as from voting.
Thank you, Councilwoman. All right, any further discussion on 18, 20, 26? So we have a motion to refer favorably back to full council. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstentions?
Abstain.
Against? And that motion passes. All right, so let's jump to the ordinance 20-2026. This one is how the charter can be amended. And as my recollection from the Charter Review Commission's discussion, presentation to us in the report was that essentially it doesn't actually, they're not looking to actually change how it's amended, but just the language of how it's explained how it can be amended was a little confusing. So it had said amendments to this charter may be submitted, or this is the current language, amendments to this charter in section B may be, or in section B it says, amendments to this charter may be submitted to the registered voters of the city by a 2/3 vote of all council members and, comma, upon petition signed by 10% of the registered voters of the city, proposing an amendment, comma, shall be submitted to the voters of council, voters by council. And so instead, that was a little confusing because the intent is that, and law department, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the intent of that language was that charter amendments could be essentially could come from council, or they could come as recommended from the charter review, or just by council, or by petition of the voters. So if the voters directly want to petition for a charter amendment, they could do so. But it's a little, the way that was worded, the Charter Review Commission felt was a little confusing. So the redlined language says council may, by affirmative vote of at least 2/3 of council members, submit any proposed amendment to the charter to the registered voters of the city for approval, or upon receipt of a petition signed by not less than 10% of the registered voters of the city, setting forth any proposed amendment to the charter, council shall submit such proposed amendment to the registered voters of the city for approval. So that was that. So essentially the same process, just making it hopefully clearer to voters about how charter amendments could happen.
Madam Chair,
Councilman Bullock.
happy to support that.
Yep. Other councilmen? Yep. Anyone comments, questions, concerns, law department? Any concerns about how currently drafted? Okay. All right. So with that, I will move to refer favorably back to full council. 2026.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Abstentions?
Abstain.
And everyone else already voted yes, so that motion passes. All right, clean up the docket nicely tonight. All right, so what is the next easiest one? Oh, let's do 17-2026. So this is the one regarding council appointments. So there was a lot of discussion. We, Committee of the Whole, met with the Charter Review Commission also prior to the recommendations and talked about vacancies. So in the report, there was a lot of conversation and in the discussion of the Charter Review Commission about how vacancies on council are handled. We had a lot of conversation and amongst ourselves as well of how, while ideally we'd love for the voters to decide every single time, that's not always practical. So this language, sort of the ideas, the Charter Review Commission wanted to essentially codify, I'll just say my understanding is the Charter Review Commission wanted to codify the current practice of, since I've been on council, and I think even before, as long as I can, the Lakewood City's Council's practice has been to do an open call for applicants, interview publicly, and then do an appointment. Not all cities do that. Famously, some of our neighbors will do the last-minute step-down so that they can appoint their successor, and that's not what we want to achieve here. And I think we all have the goal of trying to make it as open and transparent as possible. So the idea is to codify the practice we've been doing of doing the open call for applicants and doing public candidate interviews. So that language is in section B. Adding language, prior to making any appointment, council shall first issue an open call for all interested candidates to submit applications, and upon council's review of the applications, shall hold candidate interviews in public session. There is a change here. So if the vacancy occurs more than 2 years and 120 days before the municipal primary election, so this is changed to filing deadline. And the reason for that is partly because if there's another amendment talking about ranked choice voting, if we were to go with ranked choice voting, it could potentially eliminate the primary. And so rather than prior to the primary, it would need to be before the filing deadline, which would be dependent. And regardless, even if it's before the, regardless, if we did a primary election, so this would actually, the filing deadline would be before what would have been the primary election. So I'm happy to talk through any of that part of it, of the timing wise, but or any of the other elements. That is what this one is about. Any feedback? Comments? No? Okay.
Can you?
Councilman Bullock.
Let me just see if I understand the reading here. So first of all, I support the spirit of it, and I think we've been doing it for, because I've been around, or maybe the second year since I was around. Prior to making any appointment, council shall first issue an open call. That makes sense. And then upon council's review of applications, shall hold candidate interviews in public session. Do you interpret shall hold candidate interviews to mean any candidate interviews that council decides to hold shall be done in public session, or does it mean council shall hold candidate interviews for all applicants received, or something else? It's vague, and maybe artfully so or intentionally so. I think I probably do lean towards having the charter not be so prescriptive to the elected body that there is no discretion afforded, but on the other hand, you're just talking about holding interviews. So, and I think the convener, the chair of the meeting would have some parliamentary discretion to structure the meeting for long or short interviews, or et cetera, right? So I don't know what the intent was or what the reading is.
Well, I'll just say my intent with introducing all these was just following, trying to give the Charter Review Commission put in their time to make recommendations and ask us to look at these things, and so I thought we should. So there's two different intents. There's could be like what I think as one individual council member and what the Charter Review Commission intended. So for what they intended, I would look at what their report says. My recollection was
Slightly different,
yeah.
at least in the second part of the language.
Okay.
Madam Chair, it's okay. I mean, I'm not, thank you, and I'm not asking us to reconstruct verbatim, their intent report. I guess the point is I'm raising that question now for our consideration, and I'd certainly welcome any Charter Review Commission member who would like to, speak or shed light on that. But to me, that's not a trivial point. So wanted to flag that.
May I suggest we ask the law department? I think this would require a few things. We issue an open call, and then we hold interviews in the public. I think those are the two things that this requires. Could the law department clarify at that point?
We could also table this one and come back to it when we're having a fuller conversation with ranked choice voting, because I think the second part there regarding the date is connected to that one, and so it may affect the language of this one based on that one is another. So that could be a continued conversation between now and the next time we convene. Director Varga.
I agree with you, Council President. Let's keep that in committee. If it depends on language from other proposals, other proposed charter amendments, we'll deal with them and be informed. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so let's pause on that one. And then we have the ordinance 16-2026. So this one came out of both the Charter Review Commission and the Civil Service Commission had made recommendations to council regarding, or they expressed concern through their individual bodies, and then they also met together about how often, both how often council and mayoral salaries are amended. There was a lot of discussion in the report, both the Civil Service Commission's report and the Charter Review Commission's report, about the methodology and some recommendations that came out of that. And then since then we got further information from the law department about one of the things that Civil Service Commission had suggested in terms of having a built-in process for salary increases, that would not be practicable with Ohio ethics laws because for various reasons. But so then this is looking at more or less than the amounts, but the timing. So one of the things that came out is that the way it's currently written, the review the charter calls for review after the year of a presidential election, which is an even year election. Municipal elections are in odd year elections. And so then by the time they meet and it goes through, then that elected official, particularly, so like if that happens on the year when it's the mayoral and the ward council members, it might not wouldn't be actionable change until another 4-year term has passed. So that was some of what was discussed with this whole thing. So there were some of the other things of this too is the timing. So because July of 1st, a presidential election, I'm sorry, I had this all written out because the timing is very confusing, but like if July 1st, or if the Civil Service Commission does the review in July of a presidential election, they have to be, and then make a written report to council. And then you have the amount of time that for the readings of council to enact anything or to let it pass within 90 days. And now you're past the filing deadline potentially for new candidates to know what the salary would be. So hence the March 1st pushing it back. And then in the municipal election, so that it would be prior to anyone choosing to file, they would know what the upcoming salary for the new term would be, is the idea. Pause there for any council members, questions, comments?
Chair, the charter review recommended some similar language, but a little different. And they recommended, I think, deletion of the 10% thing, but we don't have that in what's proposed, and I'm wondering the kind of distinction there. So unless I get the charter review report, it deletes approved by the mayor. However, no increase in salary under the section shall exceed 10% for the salary for the office of mayor or council unless there has been no increase in salary for the preceding 10 years. And then we keep that cap in what's, I think, on the docket, but it changes it the preceding 8 years. And I'm just curious as to kind of, I could see either or, right?
I don't recall. I think maybe because the terms are 4 years, and I also looked at the Civil Service Commission's report.
Oh, so you're kind of blending the civil service and the charter? Okay, I get
right.
it. Yeah.
Because some of the things the Civil Service Commission they asked us to implement like some change, but then we couldn't do that, and so trying to combine both recommendations is the thought.
Yeah,
Director Saul.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would recommend that we keep this one in committee, just to clarify that, along with the others that we'll be reviewing.
That's what I was going to say. You're a great lawyer.
All right. Any other feedback, discussion? Okay, so we'll keep that one in. And then finally, redistricting. Okay, so let's try that one. So this one basically came out of looking at currently, I believe the charter does not have any process for how doesn't require them to be looked at. I think it just says that council sets them. I could be wrong about that. So this sets a way for council to redistrict authority to the city. That hasn't happened for many years, and sets a process to make them potentially looking at best practices in terms of being contiguous, compact, bounded by natural boundaries or street lines, and to try to essentially have as much as possible equal divisions of population within a certain level. It also suggests using the Planning Commission to help review and make, if necessary, appropriate redivisions of the city into 4 wards. And I think the idea there being, we've seen it from the state level of elected officials trying to choose their voters and trying to take it out of elected officials' hands and into more neutral body and having some sort of process. So it's not necessarily that it's a huge problem here, although Ward 4 currently does have a significantly larger population that would fall outside of these proposed best practices. So it creates a process.
Madam.
Yep, Councilmember Strubing.
Thank you. I am supportive of this in establishing a process because there isn't one. I would be careful to base it solely on population. As we know, Ward 4 is heavy population because of the Gold Coast, which has their own communities there. And I don't know that I've ever heard Councilperson Marks or Councilperson O'Malley ever say that, oh my gosh, I have so much more work than any of you, because those communities are communities within themselves. And I don't know that they'll be calling you that because their trash wasn't picked up or because their parking lot wasn't plowed, because they are communities in and of themselves. So I would just, while I appreciate that we need a process in place, I don't know that solely on population is worth being the only criteria.
Vice President Baker.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Councilperson Strubing. And I've thought about this. I've wrestled with this because I do think that there is some, and this is where I'm like nostalgia, cultural history. I do like the fact that all 4 wards have, generally speaking, in Lakewood, the closer we are to the lake, nicer, lake, right? And then we literally have railroad tracks a little south, and then we go further towards 90. I do like that the 4 wards are broken up into like your neighbors in the north, your neighbors in the south, and everyone in between. And I do think, I've talked to other Ward 4 council members, and, technically on the polarities, right, Ward 1 is the smallest population-wise. It's the biggest surface area-wise, I believe. There was a report a couple years ago that Council President O'Malley had kind of put together with some help from an outside entity to show that kind of disparity. I think I probably get just as many calls, if not more, than the Ward 4 person. So but that's not what we're doing here, right? It's not about number of calls. It's about number of residents and constituents. So those are kind of competing forces, right? And so I like setting up a process to try to do something because otherwise stasis would be bad, and it would just be driven by the people sitting here would be then how we pick our wards, or we just keep them because of, inertia. In this case, no inertia, no movement, so we just stay the same. So I like the idea of putting something in the charter that would require some sort of annual process, or decennial review or process. I would like to have some suggestion about, fidelity to kind of traditional wards in the sense of north-south. But I'm trying to find a way to put that in a charter, right? Because I like that, but I don't know if you guys do or if the community does. So that's different, right? Or do we want to have kind of all the folks south of Madison in one ward and then Madison to Detroit, and then, right? So you can also break it down east-west if you want to, which I think would be worthy, just different. So I'd like a little bit more time to think about this one, but I also would like all of your input or the administration's input or public input on kind of how they feel about it. Because I certainly know and I think the Charter Review Commission did an admirable job of like giving us something, trying to depoliticize it. Because I think, and those are the two things I can certainly agree with. But there is some wiggle room in the middle as to how we kind of really put it forward.
Councilmember Evans.
Thank you, Chair. I agree. I think we do need a process in place. And I also agree with Councilman Baker about the nature of our wards that do run north to south. I think that is important. That all of us, represent a fairly diverse population with that layout. It's historically important. I think it's important the way we do our jobs. So I agree. I'd love to take some more time to put some more thought into this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too agree. I do like the vertical nature of our wards. And to Councilperson Streebig's point, I honestly don't really even know if I get more more calls than the rest of the ward council people. But I agree. Ward 4 is unique with the Gold Coast, and so I too like the idea of establishing a process. But I don't necessarily think that we have to reinvent the wheel as far as the geographical layout of our wards.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I've thought about this too in terms of, well, in a couple ways. One of the things that came up in the Charter Review Commission meetings, which I was able to attend more of, I think, than a lot of council members just by nature of being president, not having to be at other committees all the time when they met. But that there was discussion too about and not just the number of calls or feel like their constituents aren't represented. I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but more that it's good to have the charter being our, with a number of these being our essentially constitution of setting up a best practice before there's a problematic council. And so sort of the same thing when we were talking about the appointment process. I don't think that anyone on this body currently would think of anything in terms of redistricting other than the best thing for our residents and have that in mind. But we see it play out in other communities and at the state level and federal level of that can happen. And so it's good to have things established, not just as norms. We've seen norms be broken a lot in the last 8 years. More, however long, it feels like interminable. The other part is that we also talked about, the Charter Review Commission also talked about, an example was when we had the ARPA funds, and each council member had a equal portion of those funds to essentially allocate. And so in that sense, the Ward 4 residents would have a lower percentage of funds per constituent if each council member were to, use their funds for their ward only. That's not exactly how any of it worked out, but just as an example of thinking about, equity and fairness and how we're doing this. So I do think the North-South does provide, just on that point, separate point, and what the Charter Review Commission recommended in terms of the best practices of being contiguous, compact territory, natural boundary street lines, the ways ours are currently drawn, north-south, does that. They're not gerrymandered. They're very clear. So, I think following
the half street thing always got me, right?
Yeah.
Where like, well, I'm on Woodward. Well, which side of Woodward?
Yeah, I know, yeah. Bell Avenue is always the same. Yeah, it's taken me. And as an at-large council member, it's like taking me even longer to learn them because they're all my constituents. So I don't know. You live in Lakewood, you're one of mine. So sometimes I struggle with that, but they're really pretty simple. So the processes laid out here, in my opinion, would probably lead to, if anything, like moving to both sides of the street or something. One of the other elements of this is whether or not Planning Commission is the correct body. Part of the reason that I had suggested Planning Commission to the Charter Review Commission when they were thinking about a different body than us drawing them was that they'd be accustomed to looking at natural boundaries and street design. However, I do recognize that the Planning Commission is not necessarily the most, it's a smaller body and maybe not the most representative. So it could also go to Citizens Advisory Commission, or there could be other ways to look at that too. It could be a convened group that happens, that we appoint and the mayor appoints and they draw them. So there could be other ways to look at that too, so for representation. Councilman Bullock.
I guess I'll largely agree with what's been said before, and maybe we work on this further for a future committee session. I will say on the record, I also support the north to south. I think there's huge strengths to that. I saw recently a 100-year-old ward map of Lakewood that also was north to south. So there's continuity here that I think is valuable to retain. Currently, the process, I don't have an objection to the Planning Commission being the body, but the current process would be that the council is compelled to implement what the Planning Commission recommends unless it's not contiguous, compact, or bounded by natural boundaries or street lines, and not equal in population. So you could do quadrants too. And the Planning Commission is currently said, so it says, shall review and make, if necessary, appropriate redivisions of the city into 4 wards. So if necessary is I think probably intentionally, artfully not specific term, but maybe to me that's where my mind goes as well, is how much of a population change merits this test. And to make sure we have a thoughtful process is what I'm driving at. We'll probably have continuity because Lakewood's built out, except for some new, larger apartment developments in Ward 3 and Ward 2 and maybe Ward 3 again. So in some ways, it's probably a best practice largely because we should experience fairly continuous population distribution unless there's a change in birth rates. But anyway, thank you for the thoughtful discussion.
So any other comments, council members? So we can keep this one in, and folks can think about it, potentially suggest amendments or substitute drafts if there's something else you want to see. So then finally we are to the ranked choice voting one, which is ordinance 21-2026. So like with all these other ones, so when we went to put the 6 ordinances on, they're not all necessarily exactly as recommended from the Charter Review Commission, and that is because as we've talked through some of these other ones, as between the Charter Review Commission's initial recommendation, sometimes we had conversation with them, we had conversation with just like the Civil Service Commission, and then we found out we couldn't do some of the things that we thought the Civil Service Commission asked us to do or suggested we do to solve the problem. So ultimately, each of these drafts is intended to try to solve the 6 identified items from the Charter Review Commission. This one is the most significantly different from the specific language recommended by the Charter Review Commission. And rather than dig into all of that tonight, I think, we have the general question before us. So all of this was also being looked at prior to the passage of Senate Bill 63. So that has now passed the House. As the Charter Review was working through it, they didn't know whether it would pass or not. We didn't know when we talked about this initially or again in that July meeting. And we had some conversation with the law department on the floor that night about whether the language is proposed. The Charter Review Commission wanted to give voters options, or wanted to give a council the option of adopting ranked choice voting based on a charter amendment that the voters could vote on and say, okay, council can have this option. But then we were concerned that with SB 63, that wouldn't work as well, and that would be more risky. So the language they submitted is another alternative. We also have a draft from the law department that's more of the language which is what the Charter Review Commission suggested. So what I would suggest is, one, we want to be thinking about how council members feel about ranked choice voting generally. Is this something that we want to pursue in some manner? And then looking at how, my goal with bringing this forward is essentially to honor, Charter Review Commission asked us to look at this. The ground has been shifting under our feet. So what the best way to look at this is, I honestly do not know. So wanted to bring it to committee and have us all start thinking about it and work with the law department on what, if any, solution we want to submit to voters. So, Vice President Baker.
Yes, thank you. And I high level, just a couple comments. I think ranked choice voting is good. I do also think that our, fidelity to the budget of the city and kind of making sure that we don't put ourselves in a litigation risk is also good. So you have competing goods, right? And I think, this discussion is right for us to have, because it makes me so upset that, we say we're a home rule state, but every time, the legislator doesn't like something or, the kind of power structure, they try to take away your home rule power. So it's just frustrating from a kind of autonomy standpoint. This is a municipal election. We're not changing the way, state reps are elected or whatever. So we should have the freedom to do that. Now, the question I have, and this is, looking at the draft. So if you look at the draft, the Charter Review Commission, and there was some language in their report, and it was clear that there was some give and take among Charter Review members about kind of what would be the best. I think there were a couple folks on Charter Review that were very in favor of ranked choice voting. I think there were a couple people that not necessarily were against it, but didn't see the utility of it. They thought it was a little risky. And so they basically settled on this compromise, which is council can basically, as long as there's adequate time before the election, either say do plurality voting, which is what we've always done, right? It's what Lakewood has typically done. There's primaries, how we've always done it. And then, but by ordinance, council can also set it as a ranked choice voting election. And as I understand it, I read this House bill or whatever, that the Senate bill that's currently sitting on the governor's desk. That's correct, right? And it says, and this is where I think the risk is, and I'm interested in the law department's analysis on this. It says, I believe, by ordinance or by resolution, but it doesn't necessarily say by charter. Is that accurate?
That's accurate, Vice President.
And so then I think there's a, they amend this and say by charter, right? Like, so that you kind of leave your chin out there, for state legislators to hit it, and take away our local government funds, right? That every other municipality is otherwise entitled to. So that's where I'm having some consternation, is that, and is that right? Could that be litigated? Perhaps. I'd rather have interest groups that are interested in this pay those litigation costs than the taxpayers of Lakewood, would be my sense there. Because I do think that ranked choice voting is the best way to get common sense candidates elected. It takes away extremes. It encourages people to get involved that maybe haven't been involved in the past. And there's a lot of really good empirical data to support that. But lawsuits are expensive. And so that's where I'm just expressing for my colleagues, right, what my concerns are and kind of where I'm at on this. And does the governor even sign this, right? I think he will, but I don't know. He's surprised me in the past, in both good ways and bad ways. So those are my comments about it. I don't know if the law department has any other comments about it.
Well, we can, thank you, through the chair, we can certainly speak to the risk of those funds along the lines that the Vice President was speaking. And I'm glad to do so now on a hypothetical basis because we don't know what charter language is before you that you're considering. Is it that recommended by the commission, or is it something separate as recommended by the council itself or a sponsoring individual? So I could speak to it regardless of what version you're considering if you want me to speak further to the risk of the local government funds, because we have looked at it thoroughly. We did legal research. And I'll share that with you right now. It's along the lines of how do we assess the risk of not having the reference to the word charter in Senate Bill 63. And of course, the amendment by the General Assembly is a major risk, as the Vice President notes. But you look at analogous cases, because there's nothing directly on point, but one analogous case is the Supreme Court 2022 case of Newburgh Heights, dealing with the revenue derived from speed cameras for a municipality. And there, the General...
Director Vargo,
Yes,
and this is the only reason I'm asking this is whether or not you want to dispense legal advice to potential litigation in open meeting or not. And so I'm just...
Thank you for that. I've considered that thoroughly, spoke with Ms. Swallow, and very comfortable with what we're going to lay out. It's pretty objective. The risk is whether we accept the risk, but the risk is there. If you look at the analogous case, and there's no secret to this case, it's been cited by the legislative authority that also rendered an opinion regarding ranked choice voting. But in that case, the Supreme Court of Ohio said two things that were critical. Number one, that the General Assembly has the power of the purse by Constitution. Number two, there's no constitutional right of any city to receive local government funds. The Supreme Court made no distinction about what type of city you are, charter or otherwise. Did not reference the home rule significance of a charter city. There were no exceptions. In addition, we start here that the state has the funds right now. We don't have them, and the state is coming after them, and we can rely on some language that we think favors us. They have the funds. It would be our burden, as the Vice President says, through legal burden and expense to try to seek those funds on this glitch in the Senate bill. Here's another analogy. We know how we struggled with whether we were going to receive our cannabis funds. Our right to the local portion of those cannabis funds is set forth in the Ohio statute. The statute lays it out perfectly. We are, as a host city to a dispensary, we're entitled to 36% of the excise tax of the state excise tax for the dispensaries. And yet, the General Assembly did not care that we were a charter city or not. We were at risk, and there was a lot of talk as to whether they were going to withhold those funds. They have those funds. So do we assess a risk? Is anybody here comfortable that the General Assembly would give up the funds to us because we happen to be a charter city, when there's no reference to the Supreme Court of that? And of course, Senate Bill 63 doesn't say if you want to enact ranked choice voting, you have to do it by charter. Otherwise, we're going to keep your funds. You have to assess whether it's a sound judgment to accept the legal risk of those funds when that General Assembly, and we know everything that they said about the cannabis, we know what they did with speed cameras, making no distinction as to whether you're a charter city or otherwise. Do we accept the risk of $2.6 million of local government funds to be withheld.
All right, Director Berger, I'm going to pause you there just because we're almost out of time.
Sure.
I do just want to also note, so the risk is one element, the benefit of ranked choice voting is another, and then the specific legislation, which version, so there's the language, the Charter Review Commission suggested that had the giving council the option, and then the version that's before us is that submitted is different than that, and the reason for that is because based on a previous conversation like this, we were concerned that having that option took away that loophole of the charter. This version includes a severability clause that says if anything is held to be unconstitutional, may result in the loss of state funding per state law, such provision shall become null and void. So this is a continued conversation. We're not going to get through this all tonight, but I did want to take a moment just because I know we have some folks here. I see a couple people who were on the Charter Review Commission. So if there was, if folks had wanted to give public comment on any of this, I wanted to create a little bit of time to allow for that. Come on up, Mr. Woolley. Push the button and so they can hear you on the recording. It should turn green. There you go.
Nice to see everybody. Those of you that I don't know, nice to meet you. I'm Jim Woolley. I'm a longtime Lakewood resident. I'm a longtime lawyer, but not a very good one, but I've been at it for a while. I also have served as a judge here in this town. And as this discussion over ranked choice voting that I've heard tonight and been part of on the Charter Review Commission it's a very important discussion, meaningful discussion. But what I wanted to bring something to the attention of you folks here tonight that I think is hopefully it's not a big deal, but it's a potential issue or problem. I read in the Lakewood Observer quotes and articles written from this council saying that the Charter Commission had recommended ranked choice voting, and we didn't. We recommended something very specific and something very different. And I don't see any of that being qualified or corrected anywhere. So as we go forward on something this controversial, which may have us all in court one day and arguing about what this is, I think it's probably important that we be pretty careful about when we talk publicly about these things, because we didn't recommend ranked choice voting. We wrote in our report about all these uncertainties and why it was right to maybe pump the brakes on this and not fully, in a full-throated way, recommend it. And then I read in the Observer that we've recommended it. We didn't recommend it. So I hope that by bringing it to everybody's attention, we can maybe avoid whatever sort of fallout there might be from something like that going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll just clarify, on page 9 of the Charter Review Commission's report, it says the majority of commission members are supportive of the city adopting ranked choice voting in the near future. And then goes on to say, but given the uncertainty of the timeline needed to implement this overhaul, the commission decided to recommend providing the city with the authority but allow council the greatest flexibility possible. And that's what we discussed at the July meeting and had some preliminary conversation with the law department that doing it directly with the voters in the charter reduce the risk, but there's still risk. So hence the if that's not specific enough to say recommended the majority of commission members are supportive of the city adopting ranked choice voting, my intent was simply to express that, or to address the recommendations from the Charter Review Commission, make sure that we had something to look at and begin working on. So if that clarifies. Dean, come on up. Push, it should be green. Push it so it's green.
Oh no, I lost 5 seconds. Council, Madam Mayor, thank you for taking these issues so seriously. Thank you for giving us a city well run enough that we had to look for problems on the Charter Review Commission. I don't think we found any major ones, but we did come up with several recommendations for improvement. On the issue of ranked choice voting, I actually, and people will be surprised to hear this, I do share many of the concerns Councilman Baker raised. The legal risk environment has changed significantly since we made the recommendation we made about ranked choice voting, which ultimately was to give council the power to decide. I described it often as a trapdoor clause, right? If state law were to change, Lakewood has a trapdoor to escape a sticky legal situation. But I'm really here to make one simple ask of the city, which is that I hope that the law department's assessment of this issue can be made public so we can have a fulsome public discussion of it if it is to end up on the ballot. Otherwise, I think we're setting ourselves up for another election cycle of rumor mongering and political backbiting, which none of us want and which will only leave us more divided and weaker coming out of it. This is important enough, I think, and citizens are already hearing competing legal analysis around this issue, so it's important that the city's position be made clear, but also debatable so that they can make an informed decision in November if they are asked to make such a decision. On the litigation front, again, I agree with much of what Councilman Baker said. I will raise, though, that as a Lakewood taxpayer, I think we have to recognize that eventually we're going to have to decide at what point we signal to voters that we are willing to stand up and speak for what we want to an unearned supermajority in Columbus. I don't think Lakewood voters always want us to be so meek and to acquiesce proactively to what Columbus desires. If we don't signal to people that we're willing to fight for home rule, that we're willing to fight for our right to live in a community that reflects our values, that we're willing to fight for the right to live in a community where our judgment about how we should be governed matters, then voters will lose faith in the ability of their democracy to preserve that for them. And so, you know, this is a bit abstract in the face of nuts and bolts decisions about the charter amendment process, state budgets, but it is important. I don't think that we should write off as litigation risk the potential value of signaling to people like, hey, we are going to fight for things that you say you want, and that we're not going to accept authoritarian actions out of a government which acts like it has the mandate from heaven, but actually has the support of about 55% of the public vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone else want to submit public comment for the charter review section? Sorry, folks, we're finishing up committee of the whole, and then we'll get to full council. Yep, come on up.
Thank you. You know, I'm always hesitant to speak where I don't pay taxes, but this does affect us. I'm with Michelle D. Jackson with Rank the Vote Ohio, and I don't want us to sort of go too quickly over the severability clause. What Dean just said is so pertinent for progressive communities in this environment in the United States of America that we do not acquiesce in advance. Next thing is going to be, we don't want you to have blue cars. We don't want you to have electric cars. We'll withhold your money if you buy an electric car or set up electric car stations. So I think that we're anxious to hear what the law department has to say, but it's very important that we have national organizations that are partnering with us. We are talking about what would happen in the case of litigation. We are hoping to avoid that by suggesting a severability clause and also perhaps extending the time that you even have. Right now it's 2029, extend it to 2030, whatever. But we have to really make decisions based on, like Dean says, our values. Don't get hung up on the what if. Focus on values. And what we need to do as progressive communities and progressive organizations to keep this country semi-democratic. That's all I have to. Oh, and thank God that back when my ancestors were coming along, that they did not acquiesce, and I'd still be picking cotton. I wouldn't be here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else who wanted to speak on the charter elements before we wrap up committee of the whole? So we'll pause on these. Council members do some reflection. We'll work with the law department. Councilman Bullock.
Madam President, or Madam Chair, thank you, and I'll be brief. First of all, thank you for the work you put in to prepare. I hear what you said a number of times. The intent is to give council an option and to also respond as a body to the hard work of the Charter Review Commission, and I see a number of them out here today. Dean, you know I respect your work. Mr. Willey, I respect your work, and I'm missing people, but thank you for your thoughtfulness. On this one, I want to add to a question of the law department. There's a section in here which would say council authority, the council shall by ordinance establish ballot form, process, and a third thing, procedure for filling vacancies. The question would be, and I'm looking at the statute, the state statute that's on the governor's desk, It says if the Secretary of State determines the county or municipal corporation has by resolution or ordinance approved the use of ranked choice voting, et cetera. So the question would be, would the state, Secretary of State, who has unfortunately not really been all that impartial of a juror these days, would they have discretion to say that one sub-element of the charter-defined process that we're considering here, would that be enough to trigger their point or not? So that's just a question for now. I also note that the governor's, even if he doesn't sign it, they've got a supermajority, fortunately. I looked up 60%, and they've passed this ordinance by, or the state has passed by more than 60% in both chambers what they've proposed. So I'll say for the record, it's very obnoxious, to put it mildly, that the state would take away the community's choice. I think it's a good question to me whether the community wants this or not. I think it would be meritorious to have a public discussion in the library, in the neighborhoods, and so on and so forth. But it certainly is a thoughtful recommendation by a number of citizens, and what this proposes to do is truncate all of that. And we're certainly capable in Lakewood of self-governance, but to the point of somebody who made public comment, I mean, it's essentially the A-bomb of penalties to threaten all, not a portion, but all local government funds. So they could be less forceful, but that's just an observation for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we will pause there. We're going to no further business before Committee of the Whole. Without objection, Committee of the Whole is adjourned. We'll just pause for just a few minutes to reset, and then we'll start full council.
Deal.
Fairbanks. Firefighters or, oh, never mind. Again.
They're going somewhere else.
Fire scenario. Or you get a whistle and start saying, again. Yeah. He's going to put some nice one.
All right. Thanks for your patience, everyone. We'll call full council to order. If you are able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll now pause for a moment of silence. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Bixenstein. Councilmember Bullock.
Here.
Councilmember Evans.
Here.
President Keppel.
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton Steiner.
Here.
Councilmember Streebig.
Here.
Reading and disposal of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held March 2nd, 2026.
Move to approve without the necessity of a reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes. Without objection, I would like to move items 14 through 18 to the top. We have a series of resolutions. We'll probably do a photo with each one, but we'll get through all 4 of them, and then we'll come down for pictures. Right. Hearing no objection, item 14.
Item 14, communication from Councilmember Bixenstein regarding 40th anniversary of the Shore Restaurant.
Councilmember Bixenstein.
Thank you, President Keppel. Dear colleagues, much has changed in our city over the last 40 years, but one establishment located at Detroit and Hopkins Avenues near the eastern edge of our city remains a beloved diner-style eatery and landmark 4 decades later. Lakewood residents Angelo and Tina Scantzos first opened Shore Restaurant for business on March 25th, 1986. Since then, this Lakewood institution has become renowned for its delicious food and kind hospitality. To this day, as Angelo and Tina continue to operate their eatery with help from their sons, Steve and Mike, Shore Restaurant serves as an outstanding and unpretentious spot for breakfast, brunch, lunch, or a coffee meeting. My personal favorite dish is the corned beef omelet. Perhaps no situation better exemplifies Angelo and Tina's commitment to their business and their community than a setback they endured in 2014. A sudden collapse of ornate facade from the front of their historic building left a pile of rubble on the sidewalk below. As Tina told 19 Action News at the time, "We are so happy that nobody was hurt. We have insurance." Angelo and Tina committed to rebuilding in the spirit of the structure's historic architecture and spent the better part of 2 years doing just that, terracotta tiles and all. Today, the building that houses Shore Restaurant continues to reflect the same historic splendor passers-by have enjoyed for more than a century. Thank you, Angelo and Tina, for your longtime commitment to the Lakewood community, and congratulations on 40 years of Shore Restaurant. We are grateful to have you, your family, and your business in this community. Can't wait to stop in for breakfast again soon.
Thank you. I'll move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing, yep, anyone? No? Vice President Baker.
Yeah, I just thank you, Councilman Bixenstein for bringing this forward. I've had breakfast there many times. Wonderful people, always engaging, and that's part of what makes Lakewood so unique is the ability to go in somewhere. I call it like the social infrastructure of our community. Makes people feel seen, gives them a forum to meet folks and interact. So thank you for your continued presence in Lakewood, residents and business owners. And thanks for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Councilman Bullock.
Well said by both council members, and I'll also just underscore the thanks for restoring that facade when that collapsed. That's not a small amount of work, and it's a really gorgeous building. So thank you for reinvesting in the building and in our streetscape once again.
Thank you. I'll just add that I knew the Shore restaurant had been around as long as I could remember in Lakewood, but I did not realize it had been 40 years. So knowing how challenging the restaurant industry can be, particularly during the pandemic years, it's an absolutely remarkable achievement and a testament to the loyal customer base and the anchor that Angelo, Tina, and the staff have created in Ward 4. I'm going to thank them for their continued commitment to being part of our Lakewood community, and congratulations. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none on the motion to receive and file the communication. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 15, Resolution 2026-15, a resolution to recognize the Shore Restaurant on its 40th anniversary as a beloved flagship eatery in Lakewood's Ward 4.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? I'll just add, so we have 3 more resolutions after this that also will have a ceremonial copy. So we'll do all 4 of those, and then we'll come down and do photos with anyone who'd like to come forward for any of those. So just a little housekeeping, assuming they all pass. But whichever one's passed, we'll do pictures for. All right, so right now we have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2026-15. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 16, Resolution 2026-16, a resolution endorsing Issue 2, the new 6.9 mil tax levy proposed by Lakewood City School District to maintain the district's existing standards of excellence in programming, teaching, technology, and security.
Vice President Baker, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you, President Keppel. So I'm happy to bring forward this resolution in support of the levy with the Lakewood City Schools, Issue 2, that will be on the May ballot. Growing up in Lakewood, I'm a product of Lakewood City Schools. I came from a family with more of a technical blue-collar background, but I went to a school system that saw that I could do other things other than that. And I had siblings that also went into the trades and did fine, but I had guidance counselors at the high school that said, you're a good student, you should consider going to college. And so I did, and the rest is history. And I feel like in this community, it's always been the great equalizer. So if you grow up in Lakewood and you go to the schools, you can live, in an apartment building, but you're still going to go to a school with kids that live in Clifton Park or Overlook Park or other neighborhoods. And I think that creates a really great dynamic to grow up in Lakewood and to become a productive citizen that understands that everyone's not like you, and there are different people out there, and it enriches your experience. And what I will say is, I did live in this community when the last levy didn't pass, and it was in the 90s, and it was a tough time in the community because it signaled to folks that were thinking about moving to Lakewood or folks that were thinking about whether or not to go buy a big house out in the hinterlands, and a decision about the schools and whether or not the community supports it is a factor as a family, whether you're looking to come here to this town or you're looking to stay in this town. And so we have an opportunity as a community to show, as a city government, to show that we support the schools and we support investment in the youth of our community. And not only the youth, but the school also runs the CREC department, which also has adult programming as well for continuing education for adults. And since that levy failed in the 90s, and I was in the school at the time, and I can remember the dark cloud that it put over the students and the administrators and the teachers in the schools. And what I will say is lately, though, and I've been enlightened by this, is that in 2013 and 2020, more than 68% of voters approved the past 2 levies that we've put before this community. So I'm here to, ask my colleagues to support this. And I'll acknowledge that, the decision to repurpose Lincoln was a hard one. And I've heard a lot from constituents, friends, people I've grown up with about it. And they're valid concerns. And I think each of us on this dais have talked to our colleagues at the school board about our opinions about it. But at the end of the day, this levy is it's a chance for our community to say we support the students in the schools or we don't. And that will send a message to people that live here and people that may move here about whether or not this community supports the schools. And I certainly support the schools. So I'm happy to bring this forward and interested in your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hamilton Steiner.
Thank you, President Keppel, and thank you, Vice President Baker, for bringing this resolution forward and for your remarks. I am also a graduate of a product of Lakewood Public Schools, and I, too, remember when the levy did not pass, and it was devastating, and that's all we talked about. So if you don't think that the students are talking in the school about the levies, they are. And they will certainly be talking about this if it doesn't pass. And what that means, and and what cuts are going to be made, and how is this going to affect them, and so I know it's hard. I know it's you're going forward asking for money for more additional dollars, but I just need folks to also understand what's happening, the bigger picture that Lakewood is operating within. So. Public schools are funded, we get a number of sources. There's the public education, there's the state government provides some money, and that comes from primarily income and sales tax. Then you have your local taxes, your property taxes. Then you have the federal government, which primarily is through federal income tax. Our state, the state of Ohio, is giving less and less money to public schools and more to private entities, including private schools through vouchers. This difference has to be made up somewhere. And that difference is happening through our local taxes. And the federal government on top of that is also distributing less and less money. So more and more is being put on the backs of us at the local levels. Overall education in Ohio, around 50% is made up of your local property taxes, 37% is from the state, and just some years ago it used to be 44%. And that percentage is decreasing and getting smaller and smaller each year. And 13% is the federal. So that just gives you a little bit of context. And when you talk about, I can't afford any more, we all understand that. Right now, the state of Ohio is not funding the schools in public education how it's supposed to be funded, and how their funding has actually been determined to be unconstitutional. So, so you can't take your frustration out on our kids. We have to put our frustrations where they need to go, and we need to demand Columbus do the right thing and fund our public education.
Thank you. Councilmember Strubin?
Thank you. I, too, experienced levy failure in the 80s. Youngins. Not in this school district, but in North Ridgeville, and it wasn't one, it was multiple. It seemed like year after year after year, they failed repeatedly. And we saw those cuts, and we saw the music programs and the athletic programs and those programs, the art programs that started to get cut. So while I don't have children in Lakewood City Schools, and I've not had children in Lakewood City Schools, I am fully in support of this levy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Evans.
Thank you, President Keppel. I agree with everything my colleagues have said. I myself am not a product of Lakewood Schools, but the schools here were a big reason I decided to raise my family here. I do have 2 children. One is all the way through all the schools, and I have a junior still left at the high school. And the experience they've had at our schools has just been amazing. So I'm very proud to join my colleagues in supporting this resolution and supporting the levy to keep our schools strong for our kids. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Bixenstein.
Just to echo the sentiments of my council colleagues, I too, not a product of the school district, but have two kids who are in elementary school and will be in the district for a long time. We're incredibly grateful for the public education they're receiving here in Lakewood, and I'm happy to support this resolution. Thank you for bringing it forward, Vice President Baker.
Thank you. Councilmember Bullock.
Thanks, Madam President. So I'm also supporting the levy and happy to do so, but with a couple additional thoughts because it comes at a little bit of a cost, more than a little bit of a cost. So first, I agree with what first of all, I know there's levy leaders and community members out in the audience tonight, and thanks for your service and your leadership. Some of my colleagues did a very eloquent job of articulating why we should support the schools, and I agree. And I like some others here have my children in schools, and they're having a fantastic experience. And part of my favorite times in Lakewood is walking to school and meeting my neighbors as they also walk their kids to school. So all of that is really front and center, and I'm grateful. I also know that some of the school leadership was working hard to ensure that any reductions would not come to their budget, would not come out of programs and teaching. That's why the focus was on facility changes. That's a painful change that the schools voted on last year. We certainly lived through that in the city side of things, painful loss of Lakewood Hospital, so I empathize with that difficult leadership decision they made. I think the city, the city is going to continue partnering. I will continue partnering with the schools on the things the city works to support schools for. That's some public safety things, it's some infrastructure planning, there's safe routes to schools, and there's parks and recreation programming. There's actually quite a lot that we partner on, and so it's appropriate that we continue working with each other. The city can certainly bring more to that table. I hope the schools will continue partnering with us. The walkability is going to be crucial because if the plan goes forward as intended, where we're going to be down to 6 instead of 7 elementary schools, that's going to have a ripple effect on walking conditions and walking distances. And I think it's important that the city do everything we can to help make good on the slogan that Lakewood's a walking school district and make it a reality for more and more of us. So that's a important an ongoing obligation and task that I look forward to working with the schools on. On the other side of it is the affordability of taxes. So I support the levy. I think there's no choice other than to do that, but I do it without failing to acknowledge that there are residents in Lakewood who are already under financial pressure. And so I'm voting tonight to endorse more financial cost on a home that somebody may have worked for years to own and lived in and raised their family in. And we want to create a wonderful school district, but if we're pricing people out of our community, we're also losing something. So I don't have a solution for that. That's a long-term trend, but I want to name it and acknowledge it and challenge all of us to work on that. And those are big issues, to either find affordable housing or to find ways to save and maybe make it less expensive to live in our community. But as others have said on the dais here tonight, I think it's got to be unimpeachable support for our schools. And I remember there's a former mayor who said, you can't have all good communities have good schools, so we want to make sure we support from the city side, the school side, and I think that's what we're planning to do tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to, we do have some folks signed in for public comment on this issue. I just need to announce that, unfortunately, because my business does work with the Lakewood Recreation Department, which is included in this levy and through the Lakewood City Schools, I'll be abstaining on this vote. Okay, so we do have Folks signed in. The first is Beth Blackmeyer. Welcome back. When you come up, you'll have up to 5 minutes. The mic's already on, so you don't need to push anything, and address your comments to me, please.
Well, it's already on. Good. Okay. Well, thanks. Thanks for having me. You know, I just wanted to say it's, I guess, you know, I want to speak to the heart of this. It's a little hurtful to hear, thanks for supporting our schools and you know, the message that we're getting. And of course, that's, you know, if I was trying to push something through, I'd probably say the same thing. If you don't support this, you don't support our schools. And let me just speak from a perspective of someone who's been supporting these schools for years and years and years and years and years. I've been here since 1991. I've been paying rent the first 4 years, and then I bought a house in 1996 that I've been paying mortgage payments and property tax on for the last 30-plus years. And so I've done a tremendous amount of supporting of Lakewood schools, and I love Lakewood. I love Lakewood. I love the schools. Just because I don't agree with this levy does not mean I don't support our kids, and it doesn't mean I don't support our schools. That said, we've got a problem in Lakewood, and that problem is we are coming up short in affordability. And one of those reasons is because we are paying a tremendously high property tax rate, one of the highest in certainly Cuyahoga County. And if you go across Ohio, we're in some of the highest that there is. And that's a problem. Because for me, my property tax on a little two-bedroom bungalow per year, on a postage stamp in Lakewood, this is just a little hovel of a home, century home, is near $5,000 per year. And that's quite a bit for me. That's quite a bit for me. And that's quite a bit for a lot of other people. My neighbor, my next door neighbor, their property tax is $10,000 a year. They just paid it, I don't know, not too long ago, right? And that's going to be, that's going to go up to probably $11,500 or thereabouts for them when this goes through, you know. And the interesting thing is that people don't really understand when they vote for these levies what the outcome of it is. Now, in quick math, it's roughly $725 per year on a $300,000 home. So you can kind of go either way with that depending on what your home is worth to figure out what it's going to cost you. That's a big hunk you're asking us to pay. That's quite a chunk. That's not a few cups of Starbucks a month. That's a huge chunk, and that's a big ask. So, in the last few years, there's only been one family that's moved onto my street, and I've got a kind of a long street, I live on Broccoli, that even has children. What's happening is we're not the affordable community we once were. When I came here, it was extremely affordable. There was lots of kids and lots of people moving in with kids, and it was kind of the place to be. But we're having a problem with that. We're getting people moving in that aren't having kids. And listen, our census is down. Our census is down such to the point that that the schools wanted to close 2 schools. I get that. I understand that. That's a dollar and cents thing, right? So that said, why are we being asked to pony up more money? Across the county, there was, now this is just across the county, 32% additional in the reevaluations in 2024, right? That's a 32% bonus that everybody got across the board, regardless of what slice of pie you get, regardless of what slice of that pie, you got a raise. What happened to that money? And, now we've got to come back in after our valuations doubling. Mine went up 51%, my valuation. And after that, now I got to pony up more money. And that's what we're asking. And unfortunately, especially seniors are getting priced out of their homes, because if you've got an $1,100 or $1,500 Social Security check, when you're in Lakewood, your tax money comes out of that. That equals sometimes $500, $600 a month in property tax. And then you're left to have to live off the rest of that. Now, that might not mean much to some people, but a lot of the seniors are anchor homeowners. They're the people that hold the community together and hold down the community. Because I'm telling you, we don't have a lot of people moving in here anymore. It's become unaffordable. And so I would ask that the city council thinks about those things before they go all in on that, and maybe give some consideration to some of that. And the fact that I don't want to spend more money doesn't mean that I don't support the schools, because I do support it, and I've been supporting it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next is Mitch Zakum. Welcome back, Mr. Zakum. I misread your handwriting, so sorry about that.
So as most of you know, I've been a landlord for 18 years, and I've had many tenants that have purchased homes, yet I've had not a single tenant, zero, purchase in Lakewood. Why? It's too expensive. This only makes it worse. And I have tenants that make easily double the average household income, could well afford these taxes. They go elsewhere. Why wouldn't they? They can go somewhere where the schools are cheaper, or top property taxes are cheaper, and get a better quality education. All you're doing is you're creating a downward spiral where people are not going to want to be in Lakewood. And not only do my tenants that are fortunately well off not stay, my tenants that came to Lakewood because Lakewood, they're LGBTQ, hopefully I got the term correctly, they leave. They can't afford it. I had one rent renewal last month, and for the first time in 18 years, she told me, I'm going to have to think about that. I don't know if I can afford that. Never has that happened before. I'm a graduate of public schools. I support the public schools. I resent your comments that if I don't vote for a levy, I'm somehow not supportive. That's just asinine. It's just disgusting. Enough is enough. People can't afford it. For a city that claims to be progressive, why are you supporting property taxes that are among the most regressive forms of taxation? Are you Republicans now? Why don't you switch parties? I don't get it. There's a reason why the school population has gone down. It's not affordable. And, you know, the schools have an opportunity under Ohio law to put an income tax levy on the ballot, which would be far more progressive. I would gladly support that. But when people have to make a decision between affording groceries and being told they're not supported of their kids, what are they supposed to do? Are you going to take a collection up? I mean, many of you make far more than the average household income, and I don't think you belong here or have any clue.
All right. Next is Martha Warner.
Hi, everyone. I want to thank Council and also Mayor George for their support of this levy. I'm a parent of 2 small kids who will be entering the Lakewood City Schools soon, and I am here to speak in support of this levy, and thank you all for your comments this evening. We all know that strong schools are a vital part of our community. They help attract and retain families. They're a source of important community bonds, and they produce the leaders, the talents, skills, and abilities that communities need to thrive. The promise of public schools is a really great one, that it will educate all kids regardless of their background or their ability. I see Lakewood schools, more than so many others, live into this really big promise. It's a true public good that requires shared community investment, responsibility, and support. And I know it's not easy. My family, too, will feel the pinch of increased property taxes with this levy, and yet I know that it is really important for the strength of our community that we continue to support our schools through sustained funding. I have learned a lot over the last few months about school finance. I thought I knew a lot to begin with, and I have learned a lot more, including that, even as our property taxes or our property assessments go up, our levy money does not go up. Levies raise a fixed amount of money every year. And so, we all have felt sort of that increase scooch up, or maybe skyrocket up, depending on your case. I feel like some years I've been scooch and some years I've been skyrocketed. But those assessments are not keeping pace with inflation and the cost of doing business for our schools. And so this levy will allow us to continue the really fine tradition of educating our students and really planning for the future. And your support this evening and over the past few months, as I've talked to many of you and many others in the community, is a powerful testament to the strength of this community that I love so much. And when I see so many leaders and average citizens, including the amazing campaign team and volunteers who are working in support of the schools and our students and our community as a whole, it makes me feel really proud and really excited. And so with that, I'll just say thank you again for your support. And I really urge all residents to support this levy, to join our campaign over the next, I guess, only like 6 weeks now, and to vote for the levy on May 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the last person I have signed in on this list to speak on this topic. Did anyone else wish to speak on the topic of the levy? Okay. Oh, there's also one e-comment, which will be submitted in the record of tonight's meeting. Okay, so with that, any further discussion from council members? Now I'll entertain a motion on this.
I will make a motion to adopt this resolution. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those abstaining?
Abstain. Thank you.
Item 17, Resolution 2016-17, a resolution to declare March 31st, 2026 Transgender Day of Visibility in the City of Lakewood, where we celebrate the lives and contributions of transgender people while also drawing attention to the difficulties facing this community.
So this resolution was introduced by Councilmember Streebig. Before I turn it over to you, Councilmember Streebig, did you want the clerk to read the resolution? Yes, please. Okay.
A resolution to declare March 31st, 2026 Transgender Day of Visibility in the City of Lakewood, where we celebrate the lives and contributions of transgender people while also drawing attention to the difficulties facing this community. Whereas Transgender Day of Visibility was created in 2010 by trans advocate Rachel Crandall, who hoped to create a day where people could celebrate the lives of transgender people while still acknowledging that not every trans person can or wants to be visible due to fear of violence and discrimination. And whereas, according to the American Civil Liberties Union, there were 616 anti-LGBTQIA+ bills introduced across state legislatures in the year 2025. And whereas at least 2 million Americans identify as transgender and have bravely overcome significant hardships to live their authentic lives despite facing numerous systemic and interpersonal obstacles. And whereas we celebrate the beauty and resilience of trans people who have made countless contributions to the betterment of our society, often working at the front lines of the social justice and human rights movements. And whereas we recognize and appreciate the work that is being done by trans advocacy groups within the Lakewood community and across the state of Ohio to continue the fight for dignity and equal rights for members of the trans community and provide a safe and healing space for all. And whereas in Lakewood we honor the inherent value of each and every resident of our city, including trans and gender nonconforming residents without exception. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City of Lakewood, Ohio, that this council and administration does hereby declare March 31st, 2026 as Transgender Day of Visibility and urges the people of Lakewood to come together to celebrate the trans community.
Thank you. And I'm about to turn over to Councilmember Streebig. Just want to note, if you are here for any of these resolutions where we have a ceremonial copy, we are most of the way through. So just hang in there. We have one more after this for the College Club West, and then we'll do our pictures, and then you are free to go about the rest of your evening or stay for the whole council meeting if you wish. All right, so Councilmember Streebig.
Thank you. Colleagues, I'm happy to bring forward this legislation to recognize the Transgender Day of Visibility on March 31st. This is a day to celebrate, appreciate, and lift our trans family members and neighbors. A day to recognize the beauty and diversity of life and be reminded that we're not created from an assembly line, but from human nature and all the complexities of our lived experiences, loves, values, and dreams. This is a day to celebrate individual gifts and our collective humanity. To coexist with one another and to live in peace and harmony is within our reach. We must continue to challenge the lazy minds of those who find union in the cults of hatred and premeditated ignorance. This resolution serves as a reminder to educate ourselves out of the darkness and willful blindness that fuels uncomfortable feelings with anything different from ourselves. It's also a reminder for those of us in the queer community to find ways in these dark days to send the message that we are here to live and thrive, love and care for one another. I encourage you to use your gifts to write or sing a song or recite a poem or write a letter to the editor or draw a picture or paint a painting. And remind everyone that we are here and we are to be celebrated just like everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Councilmember Striebig, for bringing this forward. As the resolution notes, there were 616 anti-LGBTQ bills introduced in state legislatures last year alone. Currently, the Ohio State House is once again considering an anti-drag bill, HB 249. While performing drag is not the same as being transgender, the language of the bill is vague enough to potentially limit the ability of Ohioans to live with authentic gender expression without harassment. While the gender freedom policy that this body passed last year anticipated this type of overreach returning, all Ohioans should enjoy gender freedom. With so many using our transgender neighbors as scapegoats, it is important that we recognize and celebrate Transgender Day of Visibility and the beauty, value, and worth of our transgender community neighbors. We see you, we celebrate you, and we're glad that you're here. Councilmember Hamilton Stein.
Thank you, President Couple, and thank you, Councilperson Striebig, for bringing this forward. I'm not sure what happened in society that individuals are being denied their very existence and questioned, assumed, and labeled as being dangerous or having some sort of mental defect. I don't know how it is that we can deny and support continued denying of an individual's right to their existence, how their medical care can be denied, how we command and demand loyalty to cis hetero whiteness, how we demand binary forms of thinking, him, her, male, female, the heterosexual nuclear family and allegiance to the nuclear family as being the right way. When the first settlers in the first lands were colonized, there existed a multitude of identities that existed outside the norms. Before the indigenous and Black Africans were conquered and their identities stolen, there were a number of identities indigenous and Black African communities exhibited, including non-binary identities, which were fluid. In some indigenous communities, personhood and identities were tied to their souls. Our transgender community members are essentially going back to our collective roots before colonization. They want liberation. I want liberation. I've personally witnessed and seen the change in an individual when they're able to live their authentic selves. It is like day and night. I will never deny that liberation from anyone, and none of us should. Transgender Day of Visibility is a way to affirm our transgender community members, friends, family members, neighbors, partners, our children. And let's make a commitment to ensure our transgender community members are able to be included and experience belonging. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion, council members? Councilman Bullock.
Pardon me. Thanks, Madam President. Thanks to my colleague for bringing this together tonight. I see Lakewood neighbors and family members and friends who I care very greatly about, and so I'm glad that this honorary resolution is an opportunity to bring us together. So thank you for that.
Thank you. All right. We do have a number of community members signed in to speak on this. First up is, and I apologize if I don't read your handwriting correctly, Eugene Miller. All right, good.
Good evening, Council, Madam Mayor. I'm going to start off, I got my speech organized, but I was in a meeting on Saturday, and they asked me, will you stand with us? And I said, yes, I'll stand with you. And so Sunday I was at church, and it was the 60th anniversary of this church, and the pastor said, vulnerability, you must be willing to be vulnerable to help people. And I'm sitting in church like, what is he talking about? So this morning I get up at 6 o'clock. I'm a substitute teacher in one of my roles. So I get in the classroom. I'm thinking it's going to be 15 kindergartners. It was 31 of them. And I'm sitting up there like, okay. So I'm doing my thing. I'm identified as a grandfather, identified as a farmer, all these identities nobody's going to bother me about. So I leave out, and I look at this one little boy. He said, I don't know how to read. Now, I know kids say all kind of things so they don't have to. I believed him, and I looked up the air, and I said, that's what the pastor was talking about. Then I got an email from this group. They said, come out tonight at 7:30 to speak for this resolution. I said, I'm supposed to be in the bed at 10 o'clock, and I'm sitting up here at 8:21, and I know what the pastor was talking about, vulnerability. And so I'm here now to get to my speech, and it'll be done real quick. And it was saying that, you already know my name. It says, I believe that every person deserves to live with dignity, safety, and respect in their communities. We all talk about visibility, but we need to recognize people exist. They exist in their lives. This resolution is important because it helps people live their lives the way they want to live it. As someone who believes in building strong communities, we must let everyone live free with no discrimination or fear. I support this resolution and promote understanding and respect for dignity of all people. Because don't nobody bother me when I say I'm a farmer, I'm a grandfather. I just hold my head up and I keep on going. So I support this resolution that everybody needs to be treated fair, and that's it. You all have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and then next up is our County Council President, Dale Miller.
Good evening, Madam President, Madam Mayor, and members of Council. I am pleased to join in strong support for Resolution 2026-17 to declare a Transgender Day of Visibility in Lakewood. This resolution is a crucial step to affirm that transgender people deserve to be loved, supported, and safe. We must stand strong against the rising tide of anti-trans violence and discrimination. The people who are stirring up anti-trans hatred for political purposes are damaging our country and the world in a profound way. I recently read Neil deGrasse Tyson's book, Starry Messenger, Cosmic Perspectives on Civilization. The author discusses a number of topics with the wisdom and perspective of the universe. In one chapter, he states that many things that we commonly think of as binary actually exist along a continuum, with the foremost example being gender. We are not born in two distinct, very different groups, male and female. Rather, we exist along a series of gradations from one end to the other. All are normal, none are abnormal, but some provide a more difficult path. Being transgender includes social, emotional, and physical challenges under the best of circumstances. We must help transgender people successfully find their way in the world and not throw roadblocks in their way. The resiliency of the transgender community is an inspiration to us all and deserves to be celebrated. This resolution sends a strong message of solidarity and helps build a more inclusive and just community where everyone can be authentic without fear. I urge your support for the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And then next up is Sean Miller. Welcome back, Sean.
Hello. Excuse me. Hello, Madam Mayor. Hello, Madam President, and hello, council members. My name is Sean Miller. I'm a 17-year-old who's lived in Lakewood for about 11 years. Where I came from, it was not safe for me as a transgender person, and we looked for a very long time of where it would be a safe place for us to move. We ended up choosing Lakewood because we knew that I'd have a safe place for myself and for my family. I cannot express how deeply grateful I am to have grown up here for so many reasons. Resolutions like this are so important because it lets people like me, other Lakewood residents who are trans, and all people in Ohio and in Lakewood, that this is a safe space for all people, and it is so meaningful to me and all the other trans kids that you guys are willing to pass forward this resolution and see us and recognize us as people who are deserving. You grant us personhood in a time that a lot of people do not want to. I cannot express my full gratitude for everything you guys do for me and our community, especially as a young trans person. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you for your advocacy. And then last person I've signed in on this is Ben Van Leer.
Hello. Just a short comment, also strongly in support of this resolution. No prepared comments. I only heard about this resolution the other day, and I have to say it was pretty wonderful to see in a feed on the phone that my hometown local government is doing something positive to acknowledge and celebrate transgender people, acknowledging the additional hardships that they face, especially when a lot of that additional hardship at this time comes from state and federal government. So it was wonderful to see, strongly support. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's the last person I've signed in to speak. Did anyone else want to speak on this resolution? Okay. Anyone being volunteered to speak on this resolution? You need not. Okay. Go. Okay. All right. So with that, I will go ahead and move to adopt Resolution 2026-17.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 18, Resolution 2026-18, a resolution to recognize and celebrate the civic contributions of College Club West on the 100th anniversary of their founding.
Thank you. And this is our last one, and then we'll do our pictures. All right. So this one, when Cheryl Bendick reached out to me regarding the College Club West's upcoming 100th anniversary, I was thrilled to be able to contribute to the celebration. Founded in 1926, the club, originally named Lakewood College Club, was created at a time when early pioneering college-educated women were often forced from their careers if they elected to marry or have children, but they still yearned for lifelong learning. I have my own great-grandmother's trunk from this era that she took to and from college on the train. My mom says she would always tell her and her sister, "Girls, get your education. No one can ever take it from you." My great-grandmother and my grandmother were both involved in their local Progress Club, which, like College Club West, was founded to give female college graduates an opportunity for social, cultural, and intellectual outlets to continue to feed their minds and contribute to their communities. It's no surprise that College Club West began in Lakewood, where suffragettes successfully lobbied ballot initiative for ballot initiative 1917 that won with 70% support, granting women the right to vote in local elections 2 years before the 19th Amendment was adopted in 1920. That same hustle was clearly present when the early founders of College Club West, which quickly swelled to 250 members within its first year. In the last 100 years, College Club West members have had the privilege of learning from an impressive roster of guest speakers, formed interest groups, including foreign languages, culinary arts and literature, physical fitness, community service, and more. Beginning in 1971, College Club West expanded its mission in an important way to help make a college education more accessible to individual women by launching a scholarship program that now regularly awards more than $10,000 to local women. Please join me in congratulating the College Club West on 100 years of continued enrichment and service. I will move to adopt Resolution 2026-18.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, and I don't think we have anyone signed in on this one to speak. Did anyone wish to speak on this? Okay. All right. Further discussion? All right. Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. All right. So we will now gather down front. We're going to take these photos in the order that we just adopted them. So first will be Shore Restaurant, then the school levy, then Transgender Day of Visibility, and then the College Club West. Anyone who would like to be in any of these pictures, you're welcome to come forward. So first is Shore.
Yeah. Oh, it came up. It's fixed now.
That's how you do it.
Yeah. That's our celebration.
Oh,
You
got
got
one.
one?
I
Yeah.
got
That
one.
one?
Yep,
All right.
yep. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
One of the members did sign up on the public comment.
Right, back to the top.
Item 1, report from Public Safety Committee meeting held March 9th, 2026.
This is Councilmember Hamilton Steiner now.
All right, thank you, President Keppel. Dear colleagues, the Public Safety Committee met on March 9th to discuss Ordinance 03-2026, which would establish regulations for the trap, neuter, spay, and return of community cats with the City of Lakewood. The committee has been working on this ordinance alongside the Lakewood Animal Safety and Welfare Board, LSWAB, since it was first introduced back in May of 2025. At the beginning of the meeting, the committee approved an amendment to Section 9B4 to insert language to clarify the intent of TNR, which may result in the live trapping of a cat or kitten for greater than 24 hours due to the logistical timeline of the TNR process, but would be allowable to the extent that the animal is properly cared for. The amendment was approved, and the ordinance ultimately favorably referred to Council to be voted on. The meeting concluded with Law Director Vargo discussing the administration's updated community cat, trap, neuter, spay, and return program policies and procedures document. This document ultimately serves as an internal document and guide, which has been updated based on the revised Ordinance 03-2026. Councilmember Strebick, the administration, and the mayor, LSWAB, and members of CLAWS and others that provided input ought to be commended for the work that was put into making this happen. Countless hours and thoughtful consideration were spent on this, and it shows how effective we can be together. I move to receive and file this communication.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Councilmember Strebick.
Thank you. And thank you, Councilmember Hamilton Steiner, for finishing this long journey with all of our community support from all of the people from LSWAB and from CLAWS and from the folks in the audience today. I see Nancy and Megan and Emily and anyone else that's involved with that group that I don't recognize you right off the bat. But thank you. It's been a long process, but it's been a good process, and one that we examined every detail twice. Or 3 times, or maybe 4 times, and then you know had the law director Ernie and the assistant law director Swallow look at this again and again and again, because we wanted to make sure that this was going to work for everyone, right? We wanted to make sure that the initial concern for this wasn't going to put anybody practicing you know, saving these cats and kittens into any kind of harm's way. And we also wanted to make sure that it was going to work for Mr. Crumley, our Officer Crumley, our animal control officer, and make sure that everything was right. So it took a minute or a year to figure, or two, to get through it. But I wanted to say thank you to everyone. It was well worth it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this group is going to work on next. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? I'll just add my thanks to everyone who worked on this. There was a lot of diligent process, good discussion, and you know, we often say sometimes it's better to get it right than to get it fast. So we're glad that we're actually have progress and see it over the finish line hopefully tonight. So, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none on the motion to receive and file the report. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 2, substitute ordinance 3, 2026, an ordinance to take effect immediately, updating various sections of Chapter 505, Animals and Fowl of the Codified Ordinances, and creating regulations for trap, neuter, spay, and return of community cats within the city.
And Member Hamilton Stein, I believe you had an amendment?
Yes. So I am going to make a motion to amend in section 4C, the very last line. And I'm going to add the number 6 after 955.1 so that it reads 955.6, and also strike the extra punctuation mark. Is
1-6.
Wait, what did I say? 1-6. Yes. So that it reads 955.16. Okay, sorry.
Second.
And striking the extraneous punctuation mark.
Second.
All right, so motion.
Don't make me repeat that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Just really basically a typo, so we're correcting. All right, any discussion on that amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And then I'll move to adopt as amended.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Councilman Bullock.
I'll add my thanks to everybody involved, and I'll comment a couple points. One is all of this work originally, and this predates me, and I'm the old guy up here, but it predates me by a long shot. The animal shelter was created to enhance the humane approach that we take in the community. So there's been a successful partnership over the years so that it's not just animal and person safety, but it's animal humaneness, and it's been the outpouring of expertise and support and dollars and time of many, many Lakewood residents who've really lifted up more than one animal board. And I want to acknowledge one person, Kim McCarty, in the audience, was involved early in an early stage version of trap neuter release, and thank you for your vision and leadership to get this group doing a new version after quite some time. So that's just perfect evidence. So punchline is thanks to the administration for working through this. I know the city under Director Gordon has, and I think Director Byington's team also designed and built an expanded facility we can be proud of for the animal shelter, and then this side is the operations, and the whole thing means that we're going to be doing a good job and a better job than we would otherwise without the efforts of all the citizens. So thanks to all of you for lifting and elevating what we do.
Thank you. We do have a few folks signed in for public comment. So first is Nancy Binder. Oh, there you are, Nancy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nancy Binder. I'm the chair of La Swab. We started the process 2+ years ago as a one-page document. Lakewood is a community that loves their animals, they love their people, they love their kids, and they especially love their little kitties, except the ones that are running around the neighborhood and laying on their porch furniture and eating their little treats in the yards and things like that. There are areas of Lakewood that they do have a problem with community cat population, which is one of the reasons our board decided that we should address this. I do want to thank Mayor George for allowing us to have the 2 years of very arduous, impassioned work on this and really supporting our work. I appreciate that, along with you, Attorney Vargo. That was great. And I've heard nothing but positive things from every single council member. Our board really appreciates that because we heard some things from citizens that wanted us to get to it right away, wanted us to just get rid of them, which I don't know how you just get rid of cats, but I have one that's accidental and been around for 6 years, so can't get rid of him either. This arduous journey did start about 2 years ago. It started as a one-page document that, hey, we really need to address a community cat problem that's in Lakewood. The ordinance before council right now is the result of 2 years of work. It incorporates the best practices and humane practices for animal trapping, neutering, and returning. A lawyer, Dana Pinella, who specializes in animal welfare as an attorney, has been involved the whole way through. The language has been adjusted, the goals have been adjusted, the language has been readjusted. This is a best practices for an ordinance for trap, neuter, and return. I've tried to look at other cities. They have bits and pieces, but they don't have the whole package put together. We're hoping that this will be the case here and council will love it. LaSwab recommends that you pass this as is, and as a member of Lakewood and a citizen of Lakewood, I really, really recommend that you pass this as is tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up we have Megan, oh, I'm sorry, I can't read. Galeda, thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson Keppel. I'm Megan Galeda, and I'm a volunteer with the Citizens Committee for Lakewood's Animals and Shelter, or CLAWS. We are delighted to be here today as you consider Ordinance 03-2026. It took a community of people working together for more than 2 years to get to this point. We want to express our heartfelt appreciation to City Council, especially the past and present members of the Public Safety Committee, the Lakewood Administration and Mayor George, and staff in Lakewood Animal Control and the Law Department. Special thanks to past and current members of the Lakewood Animal Safety and Welfare Advisory Board, LaSwab, and past and present board members of CLAWS. Without everyone's support, we wouldn't be here today. With this ordinance, we can, excuse me, I'm getting choked up. With this ordinance, we can work with the broader Lakewood community to address the free-roaming community cat population in the city. Whether people want to help community cats or are frustrated by their presence, Trap, Neuter, Return provides a humane solution. We can work together to address the community cat population and help individual cats. If this ordinance passes, our work can begin. Thank you for considering this ordinance. I hope you will vote in favor of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. That's everybody I've signed in to speak. Did anyone else wish to speak? Going once? Vice President Baker.
Yes, thank you, Council President, and thank you to the volunteers here. I'm just reminded that, like, on council, we pass ordinances and change the code, but oftentimes, especially when you get into this level of detail, it's about changing processes, which we don't necessarily have control over, so you need to work really closely with the administration to make sure our code aligns with our processes. And, we had a similar experience with Complete Streets. It took a long time, very detail-oriented, but we're getting into kind of like people's roles and what they do and their processes, and this is similar. And it takes an engaged group of folks and advocates, so appreciate your advocacy and your volunteerism in that respect. And it takes an engaged members of council to push it through, and then a receptive and engaged administration too. So public policy isn't always fun or fast, but you know, the slower and more deliberative you are, the better I think the outcome is. So thank you for everyone's perseverance through this.
Thank you. Definitely echo that, and as a cat lady myself, I really appreciate all the hard work, so thank you for everyone that had a hand in this, which was a lot. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to adopt as amended. Any further discussion? Hearing none. On the motion to adopt, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 3, report from Housing Planning and Development Committee held March 9th, 2026.
Councilman Evans.
Thank you, President Keppel. Dear colleagues, the Housing Planning and Development Committee met on March 9th to wrap up several months of work on Ordinance 02-2026 regarding front yard plantings. The topic was first introduced by Building Commissioner Parmley in May 2025. After a series of committee meetings and after receiving helpful feedback from gardeners across the city, including Keep Lakewood Beautiful, the scope of the ordinance was narrowed to strike a compromise between the rights of property owners and public safety issues. Excuse me, the ordinance is aiming to address, namely, sightlines. To put it simply, this ordinance requires that any private property planting within 2 feet of the property line must be managed to prevent visual obstruction that could cause a public safety hazard. The committee moved to replace the previous version of the ordinance with a new version that includes diagrams to match the text descriptions. During a close examination of the text and diagrams, it was agreed that additional updates were needed to improve clarity and consistency. The committee asked Commissioner Parmley to update Figure 2 to reflect the committee's feedback. A motion will be made to amend Ordinance 02-2026 by substituting with the version that includes Commissioner Parmley's updates. Just want to thank Commissioner Parmley once again, and happy we got this done in under a year, so good job, everybody. And I'll make a motion to receive and file this communication.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 4, substitute ordinance 2-2026, an ordinance to take effect immediately to amend Chapter 1775, weeds of the codified ordinance for the purpose of establishing regulations for front yard plantings.
All right, and we're moving to substitute the substitute. Is that accurate? Yeah, we're substituting with the version, the version in Granicus that's marked subbed out of Housing Plan Development. Updated diagrams. Okay. Okay, so we're moving to substitute with the version that says updated diagrams.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. On the motion to substitute, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that motion passes. All right, and then we will move to adopt as substituted.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Just again, want to thank everyone who had a hand in this. You know, we had a lot of good discussion about it and community input that I think ultimately made it stronger. So, great. Further discussion? Hearing none. On the motion to adopt a substitute, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 5, report from Public Works and Sustainability Committee held March 9th, 2026.
Councilman Bullock.
Sorry. Thanks, Madam President. Dear colleagues, the Public Works and Sustainability Committee met on March 9th to discuss Resolution 2026-03, which will appoint one member to the Tree Advisory and Education Board for the position vacated by Councilmember Bixenstein upon his appointment to City Council. The committee entered executive session to discuss the candidates. After discussion, the committee exited executive session, and a motion was made to insert the name of Marco Oriella into the resolution. Committee members remarked upon the highly qualified pool of applicants and expressed their appreciation for the willingness of everyone who applied to serve their community on this board. Lakewood is fortunate to have so many passionate and experienced tree advocates. We look forward to making future appointments as vacancies become available. Thank Mr. Oriella for offering his unique expertise and perspective in service of the Tree Advisory Board, and we look forward to working with him in that capacity. The committee unanimously voted to favorably refer Resolution 2026-03 as amended back to the full council for adoption. Sincerely.
Thank you. I will move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Or the report. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Thank you, Councilman Bullock and the committee for taking that on. So we have a lot in committee of the whole, so that was helpful. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 6, substitute resolution 2026-03, a resolution to take effect immediately, appointing Marco Oriella to the Tree Advisory and Education Board for the unexpired term, it should say, beginning immediately and ending December 31, 2026.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. We'll thank Mr. Oriella for his willingness to serve. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 7, report from Committee of the Whole held today, March 16, 2026.
So keep this brief. It's been a long night. So earlier this evening, Committee of the Whole met, and we begin the evening with a report from Planner Amanda Kramer regarding the Public Art Master Plan, the current status and timeline, and the elements being considered as part of that Public Art Master Plan, which will include a public meeting at a date in the future. And then we moved on to the ordinances regarding the charter amendments. 2 were voted favorably back to full council for future consideration. That was Ordinance 18-2026 regarding the redlining of legislation, and Ordinance 20-2026, which is amending the language describing how the charter can be amended. The remainder of the charter amendments will stay in committee for now for future discussion. I will move to receive and file that report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. So I'm going to move to suspend the rules now to read items 8 through 13 together.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 8, Ordinance 16-2026, an ordinance to take effect immediately, submitting to the electors of the City of Lakewood an amendment to the Third Amended Charter in order to change the frequency with which the Civil Service Commission reviews elected officials' salaries. Item 9, Ordinance 17-2026, an ordinance to take effect immediately, submitting to the electors of the City of Lakewood an amendment to the Third Amended Charter to the City of Lakewood in order to add additional requirements to the process by which council appoints new members to fill a vacancy. Item 10, Ordinance 18-2026, an ordinance to take effect immediately, submitting to the electors of the City of Lakewood an amendment to the Third Amended Charter of the City of Lakewood in order to change the manner in which legislation is amended to remove the requirement that the entire ordinance and resolution be repealed, then a new ordinance or resolution be enacted. Item 11, Ordinance 19-2026, an ordinance to take effect immediately, submitting to the electors of the City of Lakewood an amendment to the Third Amended Charter of the City of Lakewood in order to establish a process and requirement for ward redistricting in the City of Lakewood. Item 12, Ordinance 20-2026, an ordinance to take effect immediately, submitting to the electors of the City of Lakewood an amendment to the Third Amended Charter of the City of Lakewood in order to clarify the various paths in which the charter can be amended. Item 13, Ordinance 21-2026, an ordinance to take effect immediately, submitting to the electors of the City of Lakewood an amendment to the Third Amended Charter in order to allow council the option of implementing ranked choice voting.
Move to defer.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 19, report from Councilmember Streebig regarding February meeting of the Community Recreation Education Commission meeting.
Councilmember Streebig.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, the Lakewood Community Recreation and Education Commission met at the Taft Center for Innovation on Monday, February 17th at 6 p.m. Coordinator Leslie Favor shared that the winter programs were finishing and spring preparations were beginning. A second session of swimming lessons has started. Basketball is at the midpoint of the season, and the swim team and wrestling are wrapping up. The basketball program saw a record number again, with another increase in girls' basketball participation. The TAP program is on spring break, and end-of-the-season parent and coaches surveys are in the plans to evaluate the programs and should be out soon. Equipment prep for field maintenance has begun, and new treadmills and cable machines are planned for the fitness facility. The indoor track is being shared with the community and indoor track team, and it remains in good condition. The 2026 Purple and Gold Classic is scheduled for April 18th with an 8:30 a.m. tip-off. A donation of personal hygiene products at the entry is requested. The spring program booklet goes out to the community on March 15th with residents-only registration for the first week of April and non-resident registration beginning the second week. Camp registration begins in early March, and some camps are not listed in the spring program booklet because they're already sold out. Seasonal hiring is beginning for 300-plus workers, including young people at least 14 years old. The Lakewood United Football Club held interviews for board positions and made recommendations and appointed individuals. Interviews to fill a board position on the Lakewood Community Baseball and Softball Association was also scheduled. Mark Walters and Leslie attended the Ohio Parks and Recreation Association conference and learned about the use of AI, appropriate pricing, and attracting and retaining volunteer coaches. They were pleased to learn that they are on the right track with their initiatives and got a new idea of requesting participant feedback mid-season instead of just at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Move to receive and file that report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Thank you, Councilmember Strebig, for that detail and keeping us informed. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 20, communication from Building Commissioner Parmalee regarding Building Safety Month, May 1st through May 31st.
Building Commissioner Parmalee, welcome.
Madam President, members of council, Division of Housing and Building would like to participate in ICC's Building Safety Month 2026. This year's campaign raises awareness about critical building issues from structural to energy conservation. This year's campaign is built to last. Each week of the month in May is highlighted with essential topics. The model ICC codes are adopted by Ohio, altered to meet our specific region, that enforced throughout all 88 counties. We're planning a no-cost campaign with each week's topic featured on our Housing and Building page, bless you, Chief, Housing and Building page, as well as social media. The ICC International Code Council is made up of 64,000 members, including the staff of the City of Lakewood Building Department. We all work together to provide the community with inspections and knowledge to ensure our structures are safe to work, live, and play. We would greatly appreciate your support in Building Safety Month to May 2026. Respectfully, myself, Christopher Partley.
Thank you. I will move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Thanks for coming to read it yourself, Building Commissioner Parmalee. I appreciate that. Suffering through it with everything. Any further discussion on the communication? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Thank you.
Item 21, Resolution 2026-19, a resolution declaring May 2026 Building Safety Month within the City of Lakewood.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 22, February 2026 Finance Department Vendor Report submitted pursuant to Lakewood Codified Ordinance 11103.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes. That brings us to public comment. Do you have anyone else? All right, so first up, Anson Hall, welcome. Mic's on, so you can just address.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President Keppel, members of council. My name is Anson Hall, and I live on Elmwood Avenue here in Lakewood. I'm extremely grateful to hear about council's endorsement of the upcoming levy and look forward to voting yes on the levy myself. I want to acknowledge the city and its ongoing efforts and dedication to making Lakewood a great place to live, visit, and do business. I've been a resident since 2013 and can't think of another place I'd rather raise a family. Tonight, I'm here to encourage the city to continue its efforts to work closely with the Lakewood City School District, particularly as it relates to traffic safety around our schools and the broader impacts of the Lincoln School repurposing transition. We all know there are several school crossing intersections that are dangerous, especially during arrival and dismissal times. I walk our first and third graders to Grant Elementary School every morning and appreciate the ongoing dialogue I've had with several council members about safety improvements to the Hilliard and Elmwood Avenue intersection. And I'm also grateful for the newly formed CASE board, as well as the Safe Routes to School group and the work that they continue to do to make our streets more pedestrian friendly and also driver friendly, because they're important as well. I suspect that the Lincoln repurposing transition will only increase these traffic issues if no additional safety measures are implemented, and hope that both the CASE board and Safe Routes to School groups are consulted as part of this transition. These types of traffic challenges aren't just school issues or city issues, they're community issues. Pedestrians and drivers are all navigating the same streets, and problem-solving these issues works best when the city, the schools, and residents are all at the table together. Strong collaboration between the city and the schools can help ensure that changes to school facilities don't unintentionally create new safety challenges, and that infrastructure improvements are aligned with how our neighborhoods are actually being used. Just as importantly, collaboration helps residents feel confident that their concerns are being heard across institutions and not passed back and forth. I recognize that collaboration between institutions is hard work and doesn't always move quickly, but it's also essential when we're dealing with student and resident safety, neighborhood impacts, and decisions that shape the future of Lakewood. My hope is that the city and Lakewood City School District continue to approach what's ahead as partners, turning complex challenges into shared solutions, and ensuring that Lakewood remains a safe, thoughtful, and welcoming place to work, to live, and to raise a family. Thank you for your time and for your continued service and dedication to Lakewood.
Thank you. Next is Chris Bindle.
Good evening, Chris Bindle, 1212 Hathaway. I'm here to talk about ranked choice voting as usual. I figured I'd rather speak to the full council meeting than at the committee meeting. But I listened to everything you had to say at the committee meeting. I really appreciate what you have to say. I want to be clear that, like, as much as I'm here in support of ranked choice voting, I am a lifelong Lakewoodite. I've been attending council meetings for 20 years at this point. So like I understand how a lot of this works. And I don't want anything to negatively impact our city in any way, shape, or form. And that funding thing is a big, 4,000 pound gorilla, whatever in the room, we got to worry about that. I don't necessarily think at this point it is a end all be all. I think we have a lot of conversations to have, and it sounds like you are all working on that, which I appreciate. I came here at the beginning of the year being like, we need to talk about this, we need to talk about this, we need to talk about this. I'm glad we're talking about it, and so now I want to make sure that we are taking the time and thoughtfully thinking it through. We still have a deadline, but we have a couple months before we get there. So just, keep working through it. Let's get past, we only have a few more days, less than a week, I think, until the governor either has to sign the bill or it becomes law because he doesn't sign it. So let's get past that hurdle, and then once we're past that, we'll take a look at what our options are from there. I do still think that the loophole that is there is a potential that we could work around, but there are some concerns that have to be discussed. We do have some, potential allies in that realm. Fair Vote, which is a national organization, they've been working with people all over the country that have dealt with similar issues. So hopefully they can, give us some ideas. I know that's where the language at the end of our current ordinance came from. So, let's just keep thinking creatively and work through this. And I thank you for all your time and support for that. So, all right, have a good night.
Thank you. All right, and then last, I think Asher left. Yeah, okay. Sorry. They were signed in on this one, not on the other one. So. All right, and then lastly, Kelly McCarthy.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Kelly McCarthy. I'm a relatively new Lakewood resident. This is actually my first city council meeting. Thank you again for having me. I'm here today representing an organization called Clean Fuels Ohio. It's a statewide nonprofit part of the Department of Energy's Clean Cities and Communities Network. We, through Clean Fuels Ohio, have been working on a national project called the Empower Project, the Empower Workplace Charging Project, where we recognize workplaces across the state of Ohio as leaders by installing electric vehicle charging for their employees and residents or patrons to utilize. And so we have a certificate here today to present to the City of Lakewood, just recognizing the city's leadership, having installed multiple public electric vehicle charging stations that are accessible to the public as well as to employees. So yeah, just here to thank you guys and present the certificate and recognize the city for your leadership in this space. So thank you.
Thank you. And Kelly, you are the last person that signed in to speak, so if you can just hang on a minute when we finish off this meeting, we can come down, and if you want to do a picture or anything like that, we can do it. Okay, sounds good. All right.
Madam President,
Yep.
I got a promise out of the Public Works Director and the Planning Director that they would also be in the photo too. So they do the work. They do a lot of work. And in all seriousness, I do want to acknowledge, I think, Assistant Director Boss does a lot of planning work and analysis and rate setting. And Chris, I don't know if there's a unit manager who's on the lead on that, but can proudly say the city's installed, if not the most in the state, it's got to be top ranked in the region or state for the number of public-facing chargers, and then this is an additional category of accessible to employees and patrons and so forth. So it's, the City of Lakewood, once again, getting ready for the way we do business tomorrow and doing it in a way that's clean and friendly. I certainly applaud that and want to thank the whole team.
Thank you, absolutely, and we appreciate everyone. I know we've worked with the Planning Department and Public Works, and appreciate the administration's efforts to on this front. So,
and I'm sorry, Madam Chair, before we conclude, one other point. There's a public comment from one member of the public about there's a couple e-comments. The second one there is regarding parking and parking procedures so that safe routes to schools are functioning like we hope. Won't get into the details here, but it did bring to mind, I forgot to ask early in the meeting, do we envision a joint City Council School Board meeting at some point in the reasonably near future? I defer to you on what reasonably should be defined as the next 4 weeks or 6 weeks, or rather, after early May. I certainly would welcome that dialogue. Thanks.
Yeah, we certainly can look at that. Some of the dialogue I've had with the new president of the school board was that the school board is looking at shifting their meeting schedules so that their full school board meetings no longer conflict with full council meetings. So we just need to look at that scheduling, and I believe that they are planning to have that change start over the summer. So we'll be looking at that date. I think it's a good practice for us to do. Yep. All right. With that, that's everybody had signed in for public comment. Anyone else? Public comment? No? Okay. Then announcements from council members. Councilmember Streebig.
We have a full calendar of things that are coming up in the next 2 weeks before we meet again. Tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day, everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Yeah. 3:20 is Eat All Feeder. 3:25 is Equal Pay Day. Ladies, we finally caught up to the gentlemen today with what they made last year.
Oh, white women did.
Right. Correct. Dang it. Equal Pay Day, women are still making 82 cents to the dollar. We talked about International Trans Day of Visibility coming up on the 31st. April 2nd is Autism Awareness Day, as well as the full pink moon. Not because it's being blocked, but because that's the name of the full moon for April, the pink moon. Yeah. Passover comes up April 2nd through the 9th, and Easter is on the 5th.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Other announcements from council members? Oh, that's it. That's it. We're done. All right. I'm going to take that as a hint unless anybody has an announcement. Okay, announcements from the administration. Chief Fairbanks.
I just want to remind everyone that Wednesday is the statewide tornado drill at 9:50 a.m. So please be practicing in your own home, your workplace, and we will be out at the schools.
Thank you. Right. Any further announcements? Hearing none. All right, no further. Council, we are adjourned.